What's up, friends? What's going on? Good to see you, Sweet Tea. Miss K, hello. Bonnie Randall. Where's Mr. Hemi? He'll be happy we're alive. Gives him some place to express himself. That cracked me up. Hold on, let me get my shit together. Oh, my dear. I'm not sure if you guys have taken in, maybe you have, all of the interviews with Belinda Gray. Not that we're going to go through the entirety of it, but Ninchi True Crime has a part 1 and a part 2 with all of Belinda's statements, which is important for the people who... Well, there's a lot of stuff actually I hadn't heard, to be honest with you, directly. But if you're just getting to learn the case or... don't even worry about that. Everybody needs to go over and check it out. It's a good reference point. It's a good place to go. Oh, my dear. Let me see. I didn't spend enough time with you yesterday speaking to my audience and saying hello. I was sidetracked in my frustration and my apology to the RCMP. But it's all good now. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I spent a lot of time thinking about certain aspects of this particular case. Recently, I've been spending some time in Mike Demand's live chat. Because, the reason I like Ninchi too is because they're focused mainly around statement analysis. And everybody's a little bit different. But when you've learned from Peter Hyatt, you recognize how important of a tool he was in these particular situations. And I think that's probably what we all have in common at this point. Well, a lot more than that, but I do like that Plaids framework that he uses, his adaptation. And I like that better than what they teach you in statement analysis, I should say. Or what they list as standing for. It's a slight adaptation. Not that it matters much at this point. I found this particular these statements to be a lot more interesting than you would think. I thought, oh, it's just Belinda going on over there. You know, it's just her carrying on. But she brings up really important points, and there's a couple there that I considered about. It brought me to a theory. And I was considering it, and we talked about it a bit yesterday, with the potential of the kids just getting outside and you know, mom and dad not noticing, and then them going to this extent to cover it up. I mean, it's just so hard to believe. I mean, that's in my mind, it's just simplifying it, dumbing it down a little bit. They're still 100% responsible. And there would be no real need, because it was a legitimate accident. A situation like that doesn't call for somebody to freak out and desperately dump the bodies just to save themselves, although it's not impossible, right? It's just, in this particular circumstance, when we're given all of the indicators that we've come across in this circumstance, it's hard not to... How should I say that? It's hard to ignore. You shouldn't ignore them. That's what makes Daniel and Malaya so suspect. Bonnie Randall, what's going on? Hello, Slim. There's no need to trigger warn anybody, which is nice. It's a nice change to listen to Belinda, who's a lot more gentle than you know, Janie in that sense. I'm sure Janie probably has some good parts about her. What they are, I've got no idea. Let me know in the comments what you think Janie's best qualities are. That's our exercise for the day. Try to figure out and leave me in my comment section. Try to find something nice to say about Janie. I challenge you. We have worked ourselves up into a tizzy. You know, it is such a baffling scenario. But no matter what theory we tend to find ourselves wandering, we all still agree that, and it's very rare that you ever get to say all. I shouldn't say all. An outstanding amount, a high percentage, seem to agree that Daniel and Malaya are hiding guilty knowledge, and they're actively covering up. And they're pulling people in to really become accessories after the fact, aiding and abetting these criminals. I like to get a lot more biased in that sense, though, in this circumstance. In my mind, there ain't no sense holding back in this particular scenario. There's not a few little floating questions out there. It's pretty disturbing. It makes me very, very sad. Slim, yeah, I do. I find myself doing it more and more. His adaptation, I find it more engaging. I like it as well. Mike D's Plaids is interesting. You forgot the S on that. Sensitivities, Slim, at the end. You're saying it's an interesting adaptation to analyze common daily conversations. That's what it's mainly used for. I wish I knew that a long time ago. I figures I learned that shit in my 40s. I wish I knew that stuff in my teens and 20s. I wouldn't have fucked so many different things up. I'm sure that goes for so many people. I'm so happy I know it now. And it's not... It is a great tool. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it sure is interesting, and it makes for an interesting conversation at the very least. You can use it in all parts of your life. Yeah, shit, I just thought about that. I regret that. Better late than never, they say. Life's not over yet. Thank God. Oh, dear. Let's see. What's going on, Esther? Good to see you. Bonjour. Lindsay? Yeah, you learned a lot from him. Yeah, he's good. He's good. He's got a good mathematical, analytical mind, which I appreciate. Plaid's got you side-eyeing the grocery checkout girl and pizza dude. Oh. What were they doing? You're picking on the low-hanging fruit. You should be pulling it out on your husband, Slim. Mama Angie, I know you're being sarcastic in my chat saying that Janie's a great landscaper. You have an LOL behind that as well. Are you being sarcastic? You know, anybody can be a great landscaper when you need to be in a circumstance like this. And what does that really mean? She can really work a hoe. She can really work around that shovel. She can really rake. Fantastic. She's got a fantastic eye for architecture. You know, there's nothing wrong with the place if it was like a hunting cabin. It's perfect. Jenny, you could design my hunting camp anytime. My low-budget hunting camp. She's great with animals. Very intuitive. She's got a problem. Don't we all? She's flawed in the Lord's eyes. You gotta be young and stupid before you're old and wise. I guess that's true, Miss K. I guess it's probably better that I recognize that. Mama Angie says, Rosie, she raked that yard so nice, then put all of those flowers up for the interview. Even fixed the fence, LOL. Yeah, it was quite different around there. We can't ignore. Hold on, I'm gonna have to pull up some images before we start here, just to remind us. I've prepared. Hold on, I think. It's nice to talk about the case like this. Let me see. Got a file on this case. I got a file in the back. These are a lot of screenshots. These particular ones came from Justin over there. Fuck it. Justin cracks me up. I do go over there and I do take him in. I take Dolly in as well. It's funny to me that they both complain about one another, but they both try to be one another. Does anybody else notice that? I'm not even shit talking them. You think it's competition? It's the competition in them. But I've noticed it's more than just. It's more than just. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too much. You guys notice it though. I don't want to get sidetracked. Yeah, I think it's probably competition. But I've recognized that. Now I look for it. Now I watch even more. So I like to read the chats. They try to outdo each other. Oh, fuck. Listen over there to Dolly, and God bless him. I don't know what sort of trouble he got into in California, but something he did made, like, the mainstream media. In that sense, or should I say somebody used the media to put him and twist his words a little bit. That's what I got from it anyway. Doug Hutton did that to me with the Orrin and Orson West case. Next thing I know, I've got some dude from some news dude blowing up phones, and next thing I know, he's putting me on blast on an interview for misrepresenting or misinforming on the case in that circumstance, and that wasn't exactly true. But it didn't seem to fucking matter. The story went out as it was in order to make another person seem like a genuine victim. That's Doug Hutton in the background at his finest. Anybody else remember that? Still got that. That anchor is an idiot. What a douche that guy is. Justin, too late for us in France. He's too late for you in France, Esther? Is that where you are? I assumed that you were in Quebec or something. Or New Brunswick. We'll take a look. What we're doing, we're attempting to take a look at the home, but I got caught up in these little notes. You know what's really bizarre, though? Like, look at this here. When the retelling of Daniel's stories... Whoops, I'm a little too close there. Hold on. When Daniel's texting and retelling his stories, it's like he forgets. Why would you forget? How could you possibly forget? You're fucking that up, Daniel. You're really screwing that lie up. Because you would have retold it so many times you could recite it like the back of your hand. It's ridiculous. This is really what happened. And you would develop an over-bias, you would think, in one direction. Daniel says in this message, when we both woke up, it's hard to remember. Isn't that a common theme throughout all of this, you've noticed? None of these two numbskulls seem to remember at any one point to the extreme. Like, they don't remember anything at any point in time. It's like they're purposefully malingering in that sense. It's hard to remember, he says. If it was me or her, but I think she said, do you hear the kids? There's a clever little adaptation after the fact that he heard us scrutinize the fuck out of his contradictions early on. It's a tough question because waking up from sleep, then your world changes on a dime. You forget things so small like that. Dude. Selective memory. Thank you, Amy007. High five. Give that a big old salute. Thank you for coming to my aid. My memory isn't good sometimes when I put myself on the spot like that. I can't remember. Then you can't remember. Those are just the little things. Like what it was that they were wearing. Daniel out here trying to convince us that it doesn't really matter what they were wearing. It only matters in the first few minutes of them missing. Holy shit. These are messages he's sending people. This is what he's speaking. Let's see here. So Mike's also interested. I forgot what their names were. I do have it written down. His buddies that he spent all of that time with. Now, Mike's under the assumption over there that Daniel spent the majority, if not all of his time down at that pipeline. I wonder why that is. Well, why he would, if that's true, I wonder why he would be spending all that time down there with his buddies. And that was on day 2 his buddies came in, I believe. Wasn't it? But there is no question in my mind that that dude was physically avoiding having to exchange any communications or information in real time because he was, 1, tweaking, and 2, he had a whole lot to hide. And they would have to come to him after the fact to corroborate the initial story from Malaya, and that's how they played it in many of you think that as well. Daniel wants people to always remember he's doing this all out of the kindness of his heart. No one will other than me. Doesn't seem like a desperate plea there. It's a real, what in other words, he's saying, nobody believes me. You don't think everybody else are interested in finding Jack and Lily? Absolutely, everybody is. That's the primary goal here. What's with the need to look a certain way in front of absolute randos? And this is not just a one-off. This is a common behavior out of this, seemingly. Yeah, I remember that, Carla Argyle. No, they haven't been found yet, Cindy. Don't be listening to any of those AI videos. those AI videos. Here's one for you. Motive is unclear, like you're mentioning in my chat. But by the looks of it, trying to frame me, all of the accusations are mounting. We both woke at the same time and proceeded outside. Proceeded, that's a cop word. Molly was up beforehand, hence the kids being marked absent. I love it when stupid people try to sound smart like that. Use these cop words, probably because they just talked to a cop. He could have died searching. He risked his life, Ghetto Panda. That is a good one, too. I love it. Who brings pizza home, doesn't eat any, but goes to work on the fence? You didn't eat any pizza, Daniel? Oh, I like that yelling picture. Let's see. There's an image of that old dirty RV. I was going to try to find something nice to say about the RV, but I don't think I can. I like what you've done with the place. Oh, that's a trailer. That's actually a downgrade from the other shitty trailer that's actually on the property, her trailer, that you're living in. Has to be because Malaya was pulling in some money in order to give Janie. It had to have been. That's a source of income for Janie in her retirement there. That's what she's always wanted. She's bypassing the municipal, she's bypassing the county and all of her taxes, and she's just putting a shitty old broken down RV on the back and calling it camping all the time. Oh shit. That's it's like choosing to be homeless just so that you can rent your place out. I guess in today's market, you know, if you can make it work, you can make you money. So what happens over there when that starts drying up? Cody loses his job. He can't pay child support, which was 12 months ago after paying it, unlike what Malaya was presenting. But what that was she was indicating to the police officer early on that they're having financial struggles. Why do they keep mentioning that so often? Probably because there's signs of, holes in the wall, signs of domestic violence, and everybody's talking about them fighting all the time, and Malaya wanting to leave and then not wanting to leave. Everybody knows about it. So their tactic is admitting to the bare minimum and working around that in order to hide the real truth of the reality behind this situation. What was the point on asking everybody to come over, I wonder? So that you could continue this pantomime? So that you could carry on with your ridiculous behavior and Daniel could make it look like he was out searching? It was important that everybody was there so he could have them convinced, because he's just not around, he's actually out searching, until Janie tells us that she's the one who drove Daniel down and dropped him off down at the pipeline. And this has got Mike perplexed. Mike Demand, that is, because it would really suggest that he spent all of his time down at that pipeline. Now, why would that be?
I'm not sure what happened, but he started drinking a lot, started doing the drugs, and in the end, he just didn't care. And she got tired of it and left.
I'm talking about
She
Cody
went to,
Ross there. I hit that button by accident. What's going on in my chat? Ghetto, welcome, Ghetto Panda. Probably never heard the end of how Janie gave up the trailer for the RV. Well, obviously, it's got to be the opposite of a kind gesture. Do you know what I mean? There's got to be some sort of financial benefit to her, and she was probably charging them rent when it was assumed that they had money coming in. Nobody gets a free ride, do they, Daniel? But they like to mention how they didn't really have a very good relationship, and you can see that just by how Janie speaks about the children, which are an extension of her, and speaks negatively about Malaya in that circumstance. She always had to call her and let her know about how poorly they were clothed while they were outside, rather than just go out and turn it into a teaching session with the kids to get their coats back on. You really had to go and call her. Could you imagine how ridiculous? Imagine all the things we don't know. We can just imagine. But it's fun to focus on the things we do know too. Like, I believe that she had to call and remind Malaya, and she's suggesting that she's a poor parent to begin with. Now, like, what sort of parent would do this and that in these Facebook interviews? She had this stranger in her house with all of her flock of kids, somebody else's kids. That's a big change for her dog. You can understand that. Her dog was so stressed out. It was losing its hair. So it's the chicken or the egg with her and her dog. But they reflect one another's emotions in that circumstance. I can pretty much tell you what the problem is. That you've got a dog and yourself cooped up in that RV all goddamn day, and you're going crazy. You're going nuts. And you were already nuts before you went in there. You were already nuts before you went on in there, and you're just sticking it out because you're thirsty on a check. Now it's getting a little sensitive, we should say, because there's no money coming in. We've got all kinds of reasons why, every reason why, even fucking Daniel not filing his taxes. The only hope you have left is Meadow. So maybe if because the cops won't let any children stay with Janie. Now, why do you think that is? Take a look at your screen. I don't think that's a good idea. Janie can't keep Meadow there because she's not fit. In any manner. So why would you have to get that nerd Logan, who you both refer to Jackie and Lily as animals, you refer to them like they're dogs, you all refer to those children as though they were as lowly as a dog, and you have to treat them a certain way. You wanted to stay on that benefit because now you got no kids. He wanted to have kids so much around there, he had to lie about it. And that's apparently how he owes so much money to it would be the Canada Revenue Agency for the tax benefits, because he was misrepresenting how many kids he had living with him, allegedly. Until they sniffed that out, until they were figured out that they were paying for these kids to two different people. You know what computers can do. Computers can figure that out. But it was good while it lasted. Perhaps Janie wasn't taking care of her dog, and she just blamed the kids for that too, Karma Moon. Don't you go blaming anything on that dog. She rescued that dog. Karma Moon, poor nutrition can cause her hair loss in a pet as well. Well, what are you talking about? They buy all their dog food at the dollar store. There's plenty of nutrition in that. That's sarcasm, by the way. I wonder if Janie was the nanny? Absolutely not. Absolutely no way. But it blows my mind that Malaya wouldn't even hand the baby over a little bit or have Janie just monitor the things. Obviously, she's an old character and should, rest her weary bones rather than go out and actually look for two kids that she doesn't even like on your behalf there, Mom. There's a strong possibility that she became so complicit because over time and slow little steps, they really started treating them completely differently than they had treated them in the beginning. And that would have been probably the time where they started not bringing in a lot of income in the home, I would expect. Because all you need is a little spark like that to set, things off, to really get at each other. Rawr, rawr, rawr. Let's start fucking fighting. Then how long before that resentment carries on to the children like it does? And you start taking your anger out on those two kids who are good for nothing because they don't bring in any money. Because their mom can't look after them. They're already indicating that in their language early on, aren't they? Oh, it's postpartum depression. Well, it's the fact that you're treating her like shit and you've subjugated her and you're telling her she's not doing a good enough job raising her kids and you've got to raise them for her only to turn around and abuse them to the point of death. Now, we've just recently seen that in a completely other case that just happened and they found that poor girl. And those pictures are so sad of that little girl. That made me, a big man like me, almost cry. What's up, Mr. Hemi? Ghetto Panda's talking about, I imagine nothing got by Janie. That's why this is so hard to believe. Two kids vanishing. Two. Why do they want to distance themselves so much from interacting, talking, bare minimum with them? Oh, we barely saw, we didn't see them that day. We barely heard them. We think we heard them, but it was hard to tell because we're drifting in and out of sleep. But they're fucking gone. I had the same clothes on for 2 days. That. Yeah, Ghetto Panda. I'm with you. I hear you. What's up, Cool Fish? It's, you know what? It's hard to tell in real time for me, Karma Moon. Talking about poor police work in this case. Yeah, well, that would be the risk factor in all of this, Karma Moon. I don't know because it's so... It probably could have been better. You're probably not wrong. I want to remain as neutral as possible when it comes to that right now. Because I don't want to get myself all worked up. In my opinion, you didn't have to have anybody come in to tell you that these people were lying to you. But how do I know that they didn't treat it like that? I don't. I'm just assuming because there's no handcuffs on them. And that's my bias, speaking in that circumstance. What's up, Drippy? Good to see you. wouldn't you like to fix breakfast and interact with them? It's impossible. Listen, it's impossible as a parent not to interact with your child. I mean, if I'm up fixing breakfast, the whole point that I'm up fixing breakfast is because I've got to feed my child. And as I'm feeding my child, I feed myself. So it ends up that we eat together. See how that works? So yeah, we would be interacting together. Did it this morning. But, you know, granted, they're 3 and a 6-year-old. How could you not be interacting with them when there's so much to do with a 3 and a 6-year-old on the daily? And you wanted to all of a sudden add another to this, you two? We're going to have another kid, and all of a sudden that's going to really improve things around here? That requires Malaya to sit there and hold her on her hip all day and walk around with this baby. She's really milking this for all it's worth, isn't it? First of all, the kid's 15 months. He should be walking around. He should be running with the baseball bat in his hand, turning double plays. Lazy bastards. Let's see. Janie was more concerned about her dog, but not the children being hungry. Absolutely, Sharon. Well, there was that mention about Janie rushing to bring snacks out to those fucking kids. Would anybody else, if you were a kid, would you not think that this woman is trying to poison you? That food would taste absolutely horrid just because this wretched old bitch just tried to give it to me. As soon as you break that trust with a child and you start to abuse them in any way in that circumstance, that affects things. These people treated Jack and Lily like they were less than. Oh, we got sidetracked, Mr. Hemi. We got sidetracked a little bit. Hold on, let me press play. We'll start this Belinda now. We'll get this show on the road.
To court for full custody, and she went to court for child support payments, and he was paying child support right up until 11 months ago now, when he lost his job, lost his apartment, and lost his vehicle, and that's why he's home. Now that we have that out of the way, does it suck? Yes, it does. I make no excuses for him, but he is my son, and I love him with all my heart. And that's what I want to say about him. Now I want to know why everybody seems to be talking about everybody else, and I find Lily and Jack are...
Esther, you're asking, where does Daniel and Malaya actually say the babies have gone into the woods? Oh, they're very careful about that. They say anything but now because they were already in there. Well, what makes them think that they would be in the woods? We know what Janie says. They don't have a clear... I don't know if you're pointing that out. You won't really find anything, Esther, is the answer. But that's a great question, or a focal point that you bring up, which would indicate what? A sensitivity? Because they're talking around it currently. They sure spent an awful lot of time in the woods. For not thinking that they were in the woods, you pretty much assume that in the first 5 minutes. I would expect, if you were desperate to find your children, if you were in a hurry trying to find them, they weren't where you thought that they were. But the more that you talk to them, the more that you read, the more that they're happy to leave it in this sort of mysterious fantasy world. Well, they sort of just disappeared into nothingness, which, is an impossibility.
Getting lost in the background. Yeah, there's where I stand.
And go ahead and say your piece on that, if you don't mind, Belinda, on about that, because you're right. They get lost in the noise, and it's about Jack and Lily, but they get
This has been a real eye opener for the true crime world. I had no knowledge that this part even existed. When I found out that they were missing, I thought they were lost in the woods. I thought they were lost in the woods right up until we went there Saturday morning and seeing where Malaya lived, seeing Malaya herself. And I still thought, well, the children must be up in the woods. There was a lot of woods. You could see the kids' toys all over the yard. You knew they well played there. Malaya was pretty, I'm not sure if it's shock, but she was very flat, non-emotional flat. I put it down to shock, that she just didn't know what to do, and she kept saying she didn't know what to do. I asked if those were the doors that the children went out, and she said yes, and she opened and closed them to show me how quiet they were, which I did find a little strange. I asked her around what time she seen them, and she said she never seen them since Thursday night when she put them to bed. I asked her what time she thought they got up, and she said between 8 and 8:30. But she said she didn't see them. She heard them out in the other room playing. She never said what room. She just said she heard them out in the room playing, and she drifted off to sleep. And when she woke up again, she didn't hear nothing, and she realized that the place was just too quiet. So they got up and they searched. She said they searched the house, they searched the yard, and then I think she said Daniel went off in the truck to search. So I asked her, I said, we're here to search. So you know your kids, you're the mom. Moms know their kids. You know what takes their interest, where they like to go around the yard, where you have to get after them all the time. And she said they always like to play up by their fort. So I told her we would start up there. So we headed out, and that's where we started. I never met Daniel that day.
She never met Daniel that day because he was too busy down at the pipeline, it's suspected. Out there avoiding all of this. Amanda Graham, Malaya is trying to pin it on Cody because if she grasses Daniel, she grasses herself. Well, she's coming up with possibilities for the police officers who are probing her at the moment. Because your kids are gone. You know, you have to rule out that they just wandered into the bush. And that's not a very difficult job. It's just time consuming. Daniel wants to tell you that they damn near spent $1 million that first day. Well, that's because everybody's overpaid to begin with. But it's the things that he chooses to focus on in this circumstance. Oh, they tried so hard. That $1 million. Well, that really looked real hard for those kids that day. Well, time to mosey on in. So it tells you that he's already factoring in that there's only so many resources available. That's what's on his mind. If you're rug-induced, how long does one chase the dragon? What do you mean? Chase the dragon with heroin, number one. Heron. He's a meth head. That's different. You tweak out on days for just a little bit. He was straight tweaking. He was tweaking out when it happened and probably went to Old Faithful to try to get him through, but there's no way that he's going to go where the heat's so heavy. It took him a long time to come back, and he wants to offer up. It was because he was out there searching with no form of communication. So he was actually God knows where. He was purposefully not being accounted for. What's shaking, Charmaine? That little boy must have left with a full pull-up. Who changed him? She said he was autistic. Did he change himself? No, Ghetto. She's already went both ways. She's already in front of the camera said that, well, there is some suspicion because what happens in their circumstance is that you get approached by the Children's Aid asking or something from the doctor or something from school to start that process. But it was either, showing the signs of extreme neglect or autism. So it was requiring investigation. Slim, you wonder how long Malaya was really nodding out? Who knows if she was in there high or not? It's just the type of individual that she is. I think that she's developed into a cold, distant, detached individual who convinced herself that her own children were less than and deserved the treatment that they got. She resented Cody. She resented that part of her life. She resents herself. She doesn't know how to deal with it. She doesn't know how to come to terms. And her silence speaks everything. It speaks to her guilty knowledge. Oh, that's exactly what they did. I can't see. Hold on, I can't see that. Patriot Girl says they could have told the RCMP in Woods, but something else could have actually happened and gave the RCMP a bullshit story. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what we're looking at.
She told me that he was out searching. He's been searching since they've been gone. I did see her mom in the Daniel's mom, sorry. I seen Janie in the driveway. He had another woman with her. I wasn't sure who it was at the time. And I did see Justin outside at the time.
Anybody around her that Saturday morning when you showed up?
She was totally, a good way to put it was she looked totally lost. She had Meadow on her hip. She was holding Meadow, and she looked totally lost. Her grandmother was sitting in the living room. As for the people around her, I know when we come into the driveway, Janie was sitting on some kind of a bench thing or something in the driveway, and I can't remember who the woman was beside her. There was a policewoman standing there, and the policewoman was talking to them. We couldn't make out what she was saying until we got up closer. And Janie was really crying a lot. And this woman was saying to her, "It's okay, Mom. They're not blaming you. They just want to look in your trailer. They're not blaming you. They just need to make sure that there's nothing in the trailer." And she went on to say that there was nothing in the trailer. She didn't want them around her dog. And the policewoman told her that she was impeding an investigation.
Ay. Drippy, Daniel said he had potty trained Jack. Who really knows? So Jack would have abandoned his pull-up if he knew how to go potty. No pull-up found. That's a good observation, good point. Daniel's just desperate to look like such a caring father in all of this and so engaged with the kids. No. See, why are you taking credit for something, an achievement that Jack would have done? Jack potty trained himself without your help. How hard is it to tell a kid where to urinate and go poop? It's not. I've actually been through potty training myself. Had quite a difficult time. Not with me, but I've been through it with that. And I find it just ridiculous because at the end of it, the child really finds out, and that habit changes. Hardly think that Daniel has the patience to even go through the process of potty training, let alone anything else. Yeah, they're not autistic, Mr. Hemme.
And she would have to get a search warrant. And then I thought, well, we'll just continue on into the trailer. That was the only thing I found just a little strange, that I was wondering what that was all about. When I got inside the trailer and after I had hugged Malaya, I mean, I took to crying. Now, I didn't notice because I wasn't watching, but my sister stated that she noticed Malaya wasn't crying at all. She didn't have any tears, that she was very non-emotional.
Non-emotional. Shared Woodfine says, how does a parent go back to sleep when you hear your children up? Exactly. Most parents get up with their babies and make them breakfast, especially when one of your children is feeling unwell. Bingo bango. Well, she was just so exhausted from doing laundry at Patty's house the night before. Drinking all of that shit coffee from Tim Hortons and eating McDonald's. She probably ate a bad McNugget.
That after the hugging, and I stated about the woman outside that was upset, and she told me that that was Daniel's mother, and that she was having a hard time, and she said that was Daniel's brother. And I told her I seen the resemblance, so I figured they were related. She did tell me who the other person was, but I can't remember. And
It wasn't
that,
Logan, was it?
The pink-haired psychic.
I met Logan, I think we were there Saturday. I don't remember Logan Saturday. I seen her in passing, but not to talk to her. I talked to Logan on Monday.
Were you there for the argument? I'm sorry, Sunny, I'm totally taking over. This is my last question.
I was not there for the argument. When we were there Saturday, when we were getting ready to leave, we were in the woods searching. We come back out. I went back in to let her know that we were finished basically for the day. That was in kind of late afternoon. And we come back out when we were sitting in the car, because I mean, it was pretty miserable in the woods. So we were kind of breaking in the car. I seen Cindy drive up. She had some woman with her, and her husband was also there. They went into the house. Then this vehicle pulled up and this gentleman got out, and he introduced himself as the chief, but I'm not sure of what reserve he was talking about. I can't remember that. But he did say he was the chief and he was looking for Malaya. So I took him to Malaya's, and he went in. So my sister and I decided, well, we'll do searching just up the other road further. So we did. When we come back, I stopped in again, and the chief and Malaya, and there was one or two other people around the table, and I thought I heard him say about a prayer circle, and they were on like a conference thing on his phone, and I could hear words in the background and that. So I kind of made my leave at that point, and I left, and then me and my sister headed out. So the only thing I can assume is we had just missed the big fight or whatever it was. We must have just missed it. I think that was Monday. My sister drove me up there. We didn't go there to search that time. I see no point in searching any further once Malaya had left. I wanted to go and I wanted to speak to Daniel. So my sister took me there. She dropped me off. I walked towards the trailer. Janie come out of the trailer and asked who I was. And as I was stating who I was, Daniel come out and said that that's Belinda, Cody's mom. So he come out and I said, well, I hope you talk to me. And he said, I will. He said, I don't want to talk here. Let's go out in the driveway further. So that's what we did. We walked out to the middle of the driveway. And I told him that I had tried contacting Malaya and she did block me. And he said, yeah. He said, weird, isn't it? Then he proceeded to tell me that the whole thing is strange. And he thinks Cindy and Malaya's half-sister had something to do with it, because he said the whole thing just doesn't make sense to him. And then he proceeded to tell me of how he searched. Now, I have to say that part struck me weird, because as he was telling me how he searched Friday, he was telling me word for word what I heard on the TV interviews. And I mean, it was basically word for word. And that struck me as off. That just struck me as totally off. Right down to the culverts, the dirt roads, waist deep in the water, the trailer, and asked who I was. And as I was stating who I was, Daniel come out and said that that's Belinda, Cody's mom. So he come out and I said, well, I hope you talk to me. And he said, I will. He said, I don't want to talk here. Let's go out in the driveway further. So that's what we did. We walked out to the middle of the driveway.
Why wouldn't you just talk to her in front of everybody else in that circumstance? What have you got to hide, boy?
And I told him that I had tried contacting Malaya and she did block me. And he said, yeah. He said, weird, isn't it? Then he proceeded to tell me that the whole thing is strange. And he thinks Cindy and Malaya's half-sister had something to do with it, because he said the whole thing just doesn't make sense to him. And then he proceeded to tell me of how he searched. Now, I have to say that part struck me weird, because as he was telling me how he searched Friday, he was telling me word for word what I heard on the TV interviews. And I mean, it was basically word for word. And that struck me as off. That just struck me as totally off. Right down to the...
Well, that's why he wanted to talk to you alone, so nobody else would recognize that. You'd be the only one. That way it would be he said, she said, or your word against his in that sense. What a shyster. What a snake. Oh, I'm so brokenhearted over your grandkids. This woman should have a lot more say than you do, Daniel. And Cindy. You told Cindy to shut the F up. You talked down to Cindy like you talked down to Malaya.
Culverts, the dirt roads, waist deep in the water, word for word. And I thought that was really, really odd. And it wasn't until after I left that I noticed there was no dog barking. But I had asked Daniel when I was there anyway. That was not the thought. When I was there, I asked Daniel what kind of a dog his mom had. Because I said, if somebody come into the property and took the kids, I said, wouldn't your mom's dog bark? Because it barked all day Saturday. It would stop barking. And he said, well, that's the thing. He said, mom's dog didn't bark and it didn't wake her up. I said, well, then I can't.
So you're saying to her that the dog didn't bark and it didn't wake her up. Was it really necessary then to say both things? Isn't that like a double negative in a way? Why would you tell her that it didn't bark and it didn't wake her up when Janie said that the dog barked and woke her up? That's how you knew the kids were outside, wasn't it? Well, how do you know the dog wasn't barking at the perpetrator, Janie? If the kids just magically disappeared right after that, wouldn't you then go and think, well, fuck, maybe I was wrong. Maybe the dog wasn't barking at the kids. It was barking at the boogeyman that was hiding behind the tree, ready to pounce and silently jump off with the kids. Nobody being seen or heard. Attach them to a balloon and fly them away. What are you saying, Drippy? Daniel is talking about her, Cindy being a psychopath. He knows all the symptoms and was just waiting for her to show up. The last one, which she did. Oh yeah, he's diagnosed her. You'd probably seem that way. You know, usually the in-law's mother usually treats you a certain way in that circumstance. It could be interpreted as probably psychopathic in nature. He's probably not wrong from his own perspective. But of course, he's nobody to be diagnosing anybody. Especially that you're on all of that, those narcotics, we'll call it. The math. Logan slipped up and said, "My grandma's dog," then corrected herself. Carla Argyle, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Logan slipped up and said, "My grandma's dog." Dr. Daniel. The only reason he knows, you're saying the only reason he knows the symptoms of a psychopath is because somebody else accused him of being one. That's usually how it goes, isn't it? It's thrown around there fairly loosely. And the truth is that we all have a bit of that inside of us. It depends from what perspective you're getting it from. Why can't you be psychopathic about cleaning the house? I'm a house cleaning psycho, yo. Why don't you get psycho over cooking me dinner? Why don't you get psycho over making me a sandwich? Like a Philly cheesesteak. Like with shaved beef and provolone cheese, green peppers and mushrooms, and maybe some red onions up in there. Maybe you go and even get psycho about putting that on a wrap and rolling it up real nice for me. Amanda Graham said, Logan also said, "What dog doesn't bark at animals? Lily and Jack were people, not effing animals, Logan." That's really, isn't that really what we're saying when you look at the totality of how they've spoken about the kids in that circumstance, especially Janie, that they treated them not just like dogs, but that's another way of saying that they treated them as second-class citizens, lesser than. Like the Cinderella effect around that place. All while telling you, don't come down on Janie, because they're not her grandkids. But she just considers them her grandkids, she says right afterwards. She goes full circle there. You just deep cleaned your kitchen yesterday. That's perfect. Pass the inspection then. The health inspection. Yeah, there's a difference between symptomatics and mental health diagnoses, I think they say.
Can't see somebody being able to take the kids because I said the dog should bark. He said, exactly. The only way the kids could be taken off the property is if they were harmed and carried off, or if they were walked out.
You keep talking like that, Belinda, and you're going to get yourself blocked on Facebook. Oh, that already happened. I wonder why Well, I wonder why. You know, old Belinda comes up into that place and starts talking sense like that. They're going to have to, block you on Facebook, girl. You can't be over here polluting the mind. It's us that'll be doing the brainwashing around here. We're going to tell you what happened. Don't need any fresh ideas. Sorry. See, it sounds too logical around Dan. She's asking too many questions. She's using her common sense. And that's frowned upon, especially when you're trying to get away with a crime here. You're not supposed to be asking so many questions. You're supposed to be sitting there believing Daniel and Malaya and over-emoting with them, hugging them and rubbing their backs like her pink-haired beach friend does. And why didn't you bring them any Starbucks? That's really why she called you, Belinda. She was hoping that you'd stop at Starbucks on the way and you would split for a $15.99 double latte.
The dogs only found evidence of the kids in the yard out to the end of the driveway, nowhere else.
Janie, the night before the kids went missing, filled the pothole with some of the gravel from the bank that is along the side, like on where her RV is. Did you see that spot filled in on the Saturday when you were there?
I didn't take notice of it, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not take notice of it. When I heard his story about that and the boot print, actually, I didn't even take notice of the boot print in the yard. I wasn't looking for boot. It didn't even dawn on me to look for boot prints in the yard. I mean, the kids played there, lived there.
I want to hear what Wade has to say. I want to hear Wade tell me all about what he was thinking when he was walking around the house and Daniel and Malaya were putting on their production. I'd be like, why the fuck am I standing around here? What do you need me here to do? What do you want me to do, especially? Like, I got all kinds of different things I need to do. And I'm here sat in your fucking, your living room or whatever the hell you call this shithole. That's what I would be thinking. I'd be like, what the fuck am I sitting around listening to this shit from this tweaker for? I'd be like, I'd put all this on fucking record everything you say, because right away I'd been suspicious whether I was your friend or not. I'd be like, all right, what the fuck's going on here? Believe I'll be taking my version of this. Thank you very much. From my perspective, I like that Wade. I like him. I can't say that, I'm not even going to talk negatively about Tint doing that. I wish it was different circumstances, but he was just what the doctor ordered. And in a circumstance like this, when you hear common sense, you're hearing a good person. You can tell in this circumstance. And I think you can really see it in contrast to how Daniel and Malaya are acting, especially. Sorry we had to sneak that recording from you, Wade. Hopefully he's okay about that now. Something tells me he wasn't too worried about it getting out. It just feels a bit dirty, a bit slimy. But we'll just think the best for now. Yeah, Drippy, it doesn't count if you bought the roasted turkey sandwich, girlfriend. But you're coming up in here with that food porn. You're talking dirty to me with all of that food porn. Is that how it sounds? Damn, sorry about that.
What struck me is they're all stating she left through the back door for the boot print to be where it's at. Why wouldn't she have gone out the...
I get a kind of a kick out of, but it's worth a little bit of further analysis, is why would... You can tell it's fabricated because of how illogical it is. Like, you can't figure it out. When she's showing Belinda and showing and doing this motion, opening and closing the door, then especially not explaining why she's doing it and how it's a thing or what makes it tangible to what's going on. Okay? You want me to think a certain way? Well, why won't you tell me what it is that you're trying to show me? Oh, see, they walked out the sliding door, and she says that she's doing it in order to show her that the door is so silent that they couldn't hear it. Yet, those kids were so courteous enough to close the door behind them when they left. I mean, could happen, but not very probable, especially in this circumstance. Come on. The kids opened up that door. They probably opened it up by putting both hands on it and pushing and then sliding it with their bodies, as opposed to raising their arms over their heads and trying to pull. Maybe it wasn't fully closed. But if you went to all the care and concern to try to keep that bear out of your front door, and you're worried about critters getting in your home, that you put a wrench in the front door, why wouldn't you do like every other household across Western civilization and use a little chunk of wood in behind that sliding door to secure and lock it? You know that you can never trust that lock. If you're locking that door and it's a routine for you, like you are betraying, you don't go and secure one door that's 10 feet away and the door on the exact opposite isn't secured, or you can't remember if it's secured. Don't bullshit me with this you can't remember nonsense. Can't remember in this circumstance with this door means no, but don't get too off track. The triple grease door, you know, the fact that they're not explaining it. They want you to think something without committing, verbally, linguistically committing to the statement that they're making. And that's in an effort to obscure the scenario and just have you buy their story. All of that is fucking ridiculous anyway. Who cares about that? What about Jack and Lily, you guys? Where are they? Don't let the door conversation wear you down. So, what happened? Where are the kids? You don't know you were sleeping? Bullshit. Their very thin alibi is Janie's corroborating statements, and they are just hanging by a thread. In fact, in theory, if the cops heard what we heard, and you would have to expect that they are because it's out there in the public realm, if you just looked, you would recognize that their stories are so inconsistent, you can't use her as a reliable witness. Whether it's physiologically or psychologically. Not sure what size of wrench there, Daleen.
Front door. She bypassed Janie's place, and it would be right out to the road then.
Is it noisier door?
I don't know, because it was open the whole time that I was going there.
What I would think, that bear's probably really smart, and he was coming to curl up and go to sleep on that nasty ass mattress out the back of the trailer that was there.
I'm just asking,
Yeah, so I don't know.
Now, and out of total respect for you, Belinda, I'm done already. I'll stay on the line, but I will not interrupt.
Okay, good, because I do.
Oh, it's fucking Durwood.
Uh-oh, retard alert! Retard alert, class!
Have a question. Janie is a very strong woman. I've seen that a couple of times that I was there, that she is a very strong-willed woman. Why would she have not come forward sooner? if she believed in her heart Malaya did this, why would she have not put it out sooner? Because I know I would have. I'm just stating that I wish she would have come forward at least a couple of days after. I mean, when she was sure in her mind that she really believed Malaya took these kids. Because, I mean, the first week to 2 weeks, it was all about searching. And when I was there, I mean, other than the reporters that I seen Daniel talking to, I mean, I was only there for so many hours each day. But I didn't see anybody hounding. I mean, Daniel talked to reporters right off the bat. Why wouldn't they have said something then?
I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, Belinda.
Oh my God. This is ironclad, bro.
But that's what Janie directly told me and showed me, to the point of they even were offering, I don't know whether Earl is her ex-husband or still husband, they even offered Earl liquor to talk. And that really
now Daniel did tell me that too.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Belinda. See, that's a confirmation of a little point. And thank you so much.
That Daniel did tell me that one too, that they offered his parents liquor and that.
Thank you very much.
Now,
that's funny. If that's true and they used that, think about they thought you guys were so fucked up that your behavior was so off kilter that you ever had to be suspicious or you were drunk. That was a test, the bottle test. Because you know a drunk is not going to want to shy away from a bottle of his liquor, especially when he's drunk like that. You're telling me that Earl and Janie's behavior was so off kilter that the cops thought it was a good course of action to use like this crazy medieval tactic on them and incorporate, buying them a little booze to get them to talk. Hey, can I bring you over a little bit of, what do you like? Why don't we sit around and we talk about this tonight, you and me there, Earl? Talk over a little bit of Chivas Regal. How about a big bottle of Baby Duck?
the other thing there is about that blanket. Monday, Daniel was telling me about that blanket. He said her family found a piece of a blanket up in a tree. He said now they never went searching at all. He found
liquor, Kay. Liquor is used to get people to talk in that sense. Speak the truth, to loosen up in that sense. So what that means to me in this circumstance, I'll take it as it's true at this point in time. Because why would he lie about that? He lies about everything else. That's why. But nonetheless, it tells you that the police are trying to get information out of the parents at the time for whatever reason, right? But they thought it was a good idea. Like, for example, there's no fucking possible way that a cop is going to try to get any information out of my mom by using alcohol. It's such a low tactic in that sense. But there's different. It shows you that the cops were treating them. They were profiling them. Profiling is probably the best word. The police were profiling Janie and Earl as fucking drunks, probably because of the shit that was coming out of their mouth sounded like they were going on like a pair of fucking drunks, like they come across all the time, right? The fact that you're living in that broken down RV, drunk. You didn't get there because you were wise with your fucking pennies. You weren't investing in Bitcoin. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Then he turns around and tells people that. Look at the offer of my parents' booze. They think that they are low class. No, they don't want to be around police or anybody talking about any nonsense that's going to be talking about the situation. It's a measure for the investigators in that sense. They're a little bit, what's it going to take for us to get together? You want me to bring you over some McDonald's? You want me to stop by with some smokes? What do you like? Do you like big Cubans? You like Cuban cigars? Well, we can't get too pricey here. Maybe some Colts and some Johnny Walker. Maybe a case of Crystal. Who knows? Yeah, it does sound like this is occurring on another planet, but in these particular circumstances, things occur. And, you know, the fact that you can see it happening, but the police would be using it as a way to get on the people's good graces in order to get more information. It's kind of like the British coming and giving the natives like gifts in that circumstance. There's ulterior motives at hand. And there's no way, because they're already hiding enough, right? So the cops can then tell, couldn't even, you know, usually in a lot of cases, the booze wouldn't even be necessary to talk, right? Especially if you're in a desperate situation to try to find a couple of children whom you say you love so much. So the sheer fact that, you know, it's the offer, it's probably used to see your reaction and gauge your reaction. We couldn't even penetrate that with a bottle of booze. It's probably something that comes up around the coffee table when they're eating coffee and donuts down at the station type of thing. Like, you know what, I'm going to use that next time. Yeah, you know, because you'd be surprised what people bend over for. You know, think it happens all the time. You can think of it as a bit of a bribe. You can think of it exactly as they talk about it. And it's just a gesture of goodwill in that sense. Because you're trying to make a good impression, build a positive rapport with the suspects. Or as Daniel likes to call themselves, junior detectives. Oh boy. I'm really bouncing some ideas off them. Yeah, it's just sitting around. I can't wait to see that interview. Those interviews. They had to have all kinds of questions because your story only takes about 30 seconds to tell. So what the hell were you down there for so long for? If you're not a suspect. Oh, you can leave at any time. You can go. Before we start here today, Daniel, I'd like to tell you that you are not under arrest. I'm going to have to read you these here Miranda rights just as a little legality in order for us to continue on with our conversation. You are still willing to talk to us today, aren't you, Daniel? That sound familiar there, boy? I'm going to shake you up in a second with the LA phone book. That's just for fun. Maybe Janie paid somebody to get rid of the kids. Well, yeah, but I think you got it backwards. The kids couldn't pay their way anymore. And that festered resentment within the household, because when the fuck are you going to catch up on your bills? You thought Rogers was bad. You thought like Bell Canada was bad. You should hear Janie. You can't stay here for free. We got bills. We got hydro. You're partial to candy bribes, Kay? Yeah, sometimes you can think about everything that you can do with the dog. You bribe him with the treat. You throw a stake over the fence before you break into the front of the house. Same sort of thing. I think it's loosely based on the same concept.
It's very strange that they found a piece of blanket. Now, I thought he told me the blanket was blue, but I won't swear my life to it because, I mean, my memory's just not the greatest anymore. But he did tell me that it was a blanket that was chucked in the garbage, and he doesn't know if a bear or something tore the garbage bin open, but he said the garbage bin was tore open, and the garbage bag was broke open, and he stated that he showed it to the police.
Probably goddamn crows.
And he also told me that Malaya called the school at 6:18. He said he didn't even know the kids were going to be kept home that day. But she called the school at 6:18, and he had that proof on his phone. And I asked him if he gave that to the police. And he said yes.
And I was talking to Janie today, and Janie has everything on her phone, right down to the point. And Janie wasn't.
Speaking of that douchebag Durwood, here's a message from Durwood to Mike DeMann. I'm sure this is from Mike DeMann. Durwood O'Grady. You better remove this AI shit that Callie Gibson is posting on TikTok about myself and my son now. It's nothing but total lies, and I'm calling a lawyer and the Mounties. WTF is wrong with you effing people? He's all upset about something. You understand? He's put the question marks there. You understand? Types like Daniel types with all of those extra exclamation points.
Actually sleeping that heavy or anything the first morning because her Ron, her brother had called her at 6:10 a.m. in the morning, and she heard the phone ringing and got up and never caught it, but then she called him right back at something like 6:15. And that's on her phone. So Janie was already up and stirring around a little bit when she heard Malaya come out the back door.
You think that it wouldn't be too difficult for the people that were there to really open up about what had happened? Why are they so secretive to begin with? They want you to think because they're protecting Malaya and they're so suspect of Malaya. All of this mystery is because of Malaya, especially at that point in time. It could.
Around 6:15. Right. Well, maybe that's why Malaya was out by the driveway, because she called the school at 6:18 exactly.
But you wouldn't think it would be too hard for Janie to come out openly and establish what time she heard the kids out there at. It would therefore have to be this time, because when you come to learn and you think back and you come up with that little mini timeline in your head in order to verify information to yourself, you'd be like, oh, Ron called at 8:48, and they want to spin and twist that point and use it for some different reason other than to identify what time that they heard the kids at. No matter what you can remember or can't remember, you can refer back and see what time that Ron called there, Janie. Say, oh, well, it was before Ron called that I heard the kids. Or was it after you heard the kids? You never get a clear, straight answer at this point in time. Don't trust any answer that they give you now. But if you're exchanging factual information, especially when it comes to establishing timeline, when it's so important to yourself here, and you're not fabricating, you wouldn't be sounding at all like Janie. And referring back to not remembering and inconsistencies. But what it seems like in this paperwork, this summary, that the person writing the summary is I guess it's the way that they're writing it. They're identifying the inconsistency, essentially, but you have to, in other words, that's an inconsistency. It depends which way you're looking at it, half full or half empty. And they're looking at this scenario in Daniel, in my mind, with this glass a little bit half full, a little bit too bullish, a little bit too positive.
Malaya called the school twice, once at 6:17 and never got through, and once at 6:19. But this is what I talk about, little particulars that mean nothing to me.
Now, okay, but Daniel told me that Thursday she called the school at 6:17.
Yeah, one was Thursday, one was Friday.
Right. Friday.
Well, she's been inconsistent. You're right. Janie's time on the call with her brother contradicts her other stories. It does. But they seem to accept all of these contradictions. And some, I guess, you'd have to sort through them. But we can only identify them. Only one person can relate them in the investigation to the facts, unfortunately, at this point. But we have enough inconsistencies for it to be a complete red flag. Not like there's any partial red flags. Many red flags here. So like when you first heard her talk about it, she got the time all wrong. She used the call in the moment to cover and use it as though it was an example of selling her story to the audience in the moment, essentially. And Daniel's doing that too, and he's going all around thinking that, you know, this call somehow verifies the fact that the kids were there. Therefore, you couldn't have hurt Jack and Lily, Daniel. Like, how do you all of a sudden make these jumps in your claims? It shows you how desperate you are for people to want to perceive you that way, but there's no possible way that you can look any less suspect. Your actions, your words and behaviors brought us to this point. You're avoiding all of this nonsense, hiding out at the pipeline with your buddies, hiding out from the long arm of the law for a little bit as your high, wore off. You can't be talking to people in your condition. Malaya's going to have to do the talking. Here's what you're going to tell them.
She called the school at 6:18.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know the reception around the property, I couldn't use my phone, but if I stood out in a certain part out by her driveway, it would pick up reception. Well, I do remember when I was there, I don't know who put their arm around her and told her, Mom, they're not blaming you. They just want to search the trailer. And I do remember her saying she didn't want her dog to get hurt. Yeah, because I tried calling Patty, and the moment somebody answered.
Really, her excuses don't have any, they're not an excuse to not search your trailer. You're just using it as a cover story because you don't want to tell them the real reason. Like, why would you when you're already in it this deep? Why would you be all of a sudden telling them anything truthful or wanting to be cooperative in any sense? Because you want to be separate from whatever horrible happened in that trailer. Their business.
Answered the phone. I said, "Hi, it's Belinda." Right away, they hung up.
Really?
Yeah, that was right after. It was right after Malaya took her Facebook and all that down. I couldn't reach her, so I figured, well, I'll reach out to Patty because I know Patty. She thinks the world of Malaya. So it is a good story. I think about it and I can make it make sense. I can see how it can look like it makes sense. Going by the CPS, going by Malaya's marks of she's protecting Meadow from CPS. I never got a chance to ask her, was she protecting Meadow from CPS because Daniel was due to have visitation? Or was she protecting CPS because she was afraid she was going to lose Meadow? That part doesn't make sense. They gave her custody of Meadow. So I can only go with the fact that she was upset that Daniel was going to get visitation. As for Darren's story, I did like the idea. Of course, finding the kids, yeah, great. And I was starting to buy it. And then I started thinking of all the original talks, of all the times Daniel had spoken, of what Malaya had said to me. And it just didn't make sense to me in the end. So I don't see it. I do not know Janie personally. The first time I seen her was Saturday. I was never officially introduced to her. From what I've seen of her, she's a very capable woman. That she speaks her mind. She had no problem telling the policewoman that they weren't going in her trailer right at that time. And after the policewoman left, she told Malaya, she said, when they come back and they go in, you make sure you hold on my dog. You hold my dog. And Malaya told her not to worry. It did concern me that day. I did wonder. My sister and I talked about it. Like, what's the big deal? Get somebody to take the dog, because he had a couple of little sheds there that were empty, besides the chicken coop. So the dog could have stood in there with somebody.
Yeah.
So I was a little concerned about that. That I do know the dog barked the whole time we were there. The dog just barked continuously. So I could tell the dog was a big dog. I couldn't quite see its face, but my sister and my daughter were close enough to the trailer, and they stated that it was a big dog. I'm an animal lover, so I know if I would be worried about my dog too if I was her. Myself, like you, I wanted to sleep in my car and stay there until they were found. What I took from Malaya's statement.
Whoa. What do you mean? What do you mean sleep in your car? There's so much more space in the trailer. You sure you don't want to spend the night in the humble abode? Or maybe in the back bedroom of the RV? Everybody's invited to stay. Where do you expect everybody to stay, Janie? She was going on about how she was, at that point in time, everybody was welcome to stay there. Everybody could have, stayed. There's plenty of space, plenty of room. Stay in the chicken coop.
Right away, I thought, well, that's just weird, because she's not saying anything. Her lawyer's not saying anything. And then I rethought what she said. And yes, Daniel is the one out there. He's the one that's posting everywhere. But when I start to look at all his posts and what he's saying, I don't find he mentions the children very much. It's always just what he is doing. Not asking anybody if they have the kids, not asking anybody to return the kids. That's only mentioned a couple of times, I found, and I thought it was kind of prompted by the reporters interviewing him. I find a lot are not mentioning Jack and Lily.
Usually that's the only reason you interview somebody, so that they can make their plea and use that airtime, for the benefit of getting their children back. And if you're too busy walking around acknowledging that that they're not in the woods and it's just such a big mystery, and then therefore onto everybody else to proceed the situation rather than you, the parent, there's a big problem there. Isn't there, Malaya?
Specifically, listening to Darren's story, and apparently this is what Daniel feels too, but yet he searched for days in the woods and went on TV to state that if he has to, he'll search for the rest of his life. And that strikes.
No. He's walked that back now. He told everybody he's going to be searching for the rest of his life. Well, why would these things even pop into your mind? You're trying a little bit too hard, especially when the news comes back and clips you the next time saying that there's no place left to search. You've pretty much searched everywhere that you can possibly search, and they're not, ever going to be found. Like it's a one-off thing. You're looking at it as those two things are opposite one another. The fact that you're volunteering all of this information, Daniel, is highly suspect. It doesn't resemble a person who's traumatized or been victimized in a circumstance like you want people to believe you have at this point in time, which is a complete different story than you gave the RCMP that particular day. If I can't find my kid within 5 minutes, it's a stranger abduction. And if that's how you truly felt, that's all you would be going on about. But you want to suggest all of these potential possibilities and leave it open-ended and then go and sleep in your nights, your beds at night? Well, we don't really know what happened.
Makes me odd if in the back of his mind he really believes because his mom heard the kids and she almost caught her handing the kids off, that if they really believe that to be true and they gave their statements, but the police didn't want to listen, I'd be telling the reporters, I'd be telling the whole world.
Why isn't the story out there? Why is it these little things coming this way? Why aren't the police heading with that story? Because the priority in this, above and beyond anything, is Jack and Lily. The fact is, it's you guys fucking around in the background, which says everything to your guilty knowledge about this scenario and how fabricated your claims are. It's impossible to ignore.
World. Yes, I've had no contact. The last contact I had with Malaya was the morning that she took off with Meadow. And you have those texts there. And I've sent her 3 since then, and she hasn't even looked at them. Daniel, I sent him one more after my last text with him.
Well, that's so very bizarre of a group of people who were so eager to have them all come to their house that they had to interrupt their busy day to come and be a witness and an audience to this fucking circus that you've created. You had to have all of these witnesses to help you establish your false narrative out there. And that's all you really did, is reiterate this baseless claim, even to Belinda in the driveway, because that's a fabricated story made for reuse. And it's bad. It speaks for itself in that sense. You don't need the RCMP to come back and verify and put a bad label on it for everybody. They're not going to tell you that, yeah, it's fucking bad and we're suspicious. Stay tuned. It's not how they work. Them making that public for all of us to see and question, nature takes its course in that sense.
And he did look at it. He did see my text, but he has not replied. I don't know what happened in the past almost 2 years, because I've had basically no contact other than what I've seen posted that she would post out. As for before Daniel, she was a doting mother. Do I think she might have spoiled her kids?
Fuck, that's what happens when you go and move in and have to live with Janie. Daniel didn't move in because he's the man of the house. He moved in because they're in dire need of help. And Janie's accommodating them. Look at all the earthworks going on in the back. She's making herself a little earth RV there. Something like out of Running Man. That's preferred accommodation around here. I hope there's hot springs. Shit. There has to be, and there would be, underlying resentment that's impossible for them to speak about this situation and it not come through, no matter how they say it or what way they talk about Jack and Lily. We point it out all the time. We talk about it all the time. You know, living under those conditions, I'm not providing any sort of excuses for Malaya, but living under the conditions with an overbearing, weird old lady landlord, grandma of Meadow, You know, the fact that Malaya was probably holding on to Meadow or overprotective of her when she was around Janie and it looked a certain way was probably because she didn't want it. There's a power struggle there, right? She doesn't want to be bonding with this grandmother, this person who treats her and her kids a certain way. There's a divide there. Janie looks down upon Malaya and therefore looks down upon those children. There's a pecking order. And Daniel's not at the top of it. Well, look at how beautiful that fucking fence is. You can put a fence up in about 3 hours. That one, that's an excuse in this particular story. By the way, guys, it's not even straight. Timu hot tub?
It's a little. Yes, I do. But she was a great mom. I couldn't have been happier to have her as a mom for my grandkids. When she left my son,
She would have absolutely been emotionally exhausted around there. Being treated like Cinderella. She could take the bull by the horns and take her life back in this circumstance, but she was living under the pressure of Daniel and Janie in their harsh ways. Malaya is completely opposite of what Janie is in an extreme way. And Janie didn't think very much of Malaya. She had to constantly call her and remind her that her kids were outside and that she has to go attend to her kids and do anything rather than a loving grandma go out there and remind the kids to put their coats on if it was that much of a deal, a problem. And how many times do you think you had to do that? It almost seemed that Janie would take that opportunity in order to flex or to reinforce her negativity and reasons, justifications for being such an asshole and making yourself feel so superior in that moment by reminding Malaya all the reasons why she is a bad mother at any point in time. I would say that they're indicated that there was a problem. They called it postpartum. They don't have any diagnosis and it's not even real. But so if that's what they're going with, that's just an excuse overlooking the poor behavior that they were exhibiting towards Malaya, in my opinion. Okay? If you were to fit that into the archetype of their pattern of lies in their trend lines. There's a consistency in the way that they lie. You know what I'm saying? You get Ghetto Panda? So, and one would only have to think, and you can see it, that Malaya wasn't treated very well. It doesn't sound like her mental health was very good. And what was the contributing factor to all of that? Janie and Daniel want to tell you guys that it's the kids, which really tells me that that's how they felt about the kids. And listen, that's her mother. It's very rare that a mother is going to just all of a sudden stop caring and bonding with that, just drop the maternal instinct. But they don't even acknowledge that sort of natural beauty in being a human being. They're as hard as they live. You don't have to live like a complete slob, a complete pig. You don't have to. You don't have to have any money at all to live clean, healthy, and it shows. I could probably use to spruce this place up a little bit and demonstrate that myself. But what I'm getting at is in this specific moment at that particular place. I'm not trying to sound holier than thou in that sense. But it all comes down to a good, clear mental state. And that mental state certainly wasn't, the levels weren't achieved in this circumstance because of the amount of substance abuse and the type of substance. You know, that's just the way it goes when that time comes for everybody with that particular substance. Especially when you abuse it like Daniel had been. Another thing that they both admit to. Well, but it doesn't have anything to do with the kids going missing, of course. Not like it ever does it? And you certainly don't expect the abuser to be admitting to that. It's not in their forte. There's just utter denial before it. And it's representative in how they come across with their claims of that particular day in this fabricated story. You guys didn't even do a good job at presenting a mystery. Which tells you it's out of desperation. They had to do it. The reason Jack and Lily, in my opinion, are no longer around is because of whatever that festering resentment is with the types of individuals that Janie and Daniel were. Daniel became just a slice of Janie in that sense, especially towards these strange kids. And I would say if any sort of interactions that he was responsible for were probably revolving around a negative interaction in that sense. But could be wrong. Oh, Deb Morndorf. You talking about Tiffany Marie? I love her. Probably. I love Tiffany. She does a fantastic job presenting certain cases. I wonder how the kids got past Janie. I don't believe she wasn't always watching. How could you not see, hear, and everything when you're in that RV? It's not like you're in a cave in the earth there. You're not dug into your little earth RV. You hear and see everything. It's like living in your car in the driveway. That's what Janie's doing right now. She's living in the fucking broken down RV that she calls a trailer because it doesn't actually move. She's got all boxed in. She's going to call it a camper. Why? Because she's camping in it. She's camping because she doesn't consider it a home. Her home is the trailer where Daniel lives. Yeah, you can't help but hear and see everything from in that particular RV. It's impossible not to hear anything and everything that goes on, including cars coming from miles away. A place where you can really hear the silence. Apparently. They agree.
And she said how unhappy she was. She didn't want her kids growing up in that unhappiness. She had no problem leaving my son. If she felt that way, why would it have been a problem for her leaving Daniel? I don't understand that. I cannot see her going through all these lengths to get her kids out of there when she could have left. I know her mom would have picked her up. She had her own vehicle.
God damn, Belinda is making so much sense, isn't she? Looking back, great points. And you can't destroy them, guys. Daniel, Malaya, that's why. And there ain't nothing you're going to be able to do about that. You don't even want to come close to those questions. We're too focused on your fabricated story and focused on the facts of the case like you want to present. Thank you very much. Remember thanking Daniel? Daniel thanking creators in the comments section for sticking to the facts of his fabricated story. Oh, God, finally, you guys asked such great questions here.
Vehicle. She could have left any time. I just can't see that. It doesn't make sense to me. That I just can't see why, not these great lengths.
Could have left in December. And
not to let it go on past that. I can't wrap my head around that. To be honest, the day Malaya left is when it hit me that I did not feel these kids were ever going to come back. It broke my heart when her and Cody didn't work. They were my picture perfect family. It broke my heart. And Malaya made me feel it was okay. She'd come every couple of weeks with the kids. And then it slowly dwindled after she met Daniel. So yes, she was changing. I can't deny that. There was some changes. So now I'm back again, not knowing who's responsible other than I know somebody was. I understand postpartum depression. I went through it when I had my daughter. And it lasted a little over 1.5 years. And then I lost my husband. And it was losing my husband that snapped me out of the postpartum depression. Do I think Malaya could have? It would definitely explain a lot about her behavior on what Daniel was telling me. I still just can't see that she would hurt her kids. It's a real strong sense of worthlessness that you have this baby. And
imagine standing there being Belinda and having this asshole Daniel sit there and bullshit to your face and lie to you and put all of the blame back onto Malaya just to get away in the immediate as he fabricates his continued story. This is her talking and speaking about it from a much earlier time than the present.
And you have in the back of your mind that you're going to have this real close bond. And your baby cries and you try everything and your baby still cries. So then you start to feel that there's something wrong with you. You're not a good mom. Then you start to pull yourself away and you don't feel that closeness. I used to hear moms tell me, oh, you'll know your baby's cry when it's hungry and when it's this and when it's that. And I did not feel that. And I couldn't make myself feel that. And then seeing Daniel's posts about how she never looked after the other kids. He did everything. So I'm assuming he let her know how worthless she was as a mom to the kids.
Oh my God. Oh my God. What did I just hear you say, Belinda? I think she just said the same thing we said. I think she has and knows exactly what's going on. She's just very careful about what she says in a public setting. So really what Belinda's stating here is that she's observing the same things we're all observing and talking about and speaking about. Are suspect over. All the things to focus and speak about, you're sitting there in the moment throwing all of this shit on Malaya, telling, you've got no idea, but I think she does. That's suspect right from the fucking beginning. If she knows, you know. Man.
In Daniel's posts about how she never looked after the other kids, he did everything. So I'm assuming he let her know how worthless she was as a mom to the kids. And maybe that was the cause of her wanting to leave the relationship, because she just wasn't feeling worthwhile with him.
Yeah, look, Daniel doesn't know any better. He just listens to everything that Janie says. You know, think about all of the bad and poor habits that you would develop listening to Janie, especially when it comes to rearing kids.
And that's what leads me to believe that Lily and Jack, I think, were the biggest contention between the two of them and what's caused most of their fighting.
Because you were there 3 times, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I arrived there. There was no police cars on the road. The one dirt road just before you get to their place, I can't remember the name of the road. It's a dirt road. That's where all the police were stationed, and the search and rescue. That road was blocked off. Right away when we pulled up, I had recognized the trailer because we had made many trips to New Glasgow, and I've often seen the trailer. I didn't have a clue that's where Malaya lived. And I feel so bad now because we could have stopped in so many times.
Well, that's one way to put it. You kind of get the feeling that she's driven by so many times, wonder who lives in that fucking Nat's Rest. And she had no idea that it was Jack and Lily living there at all.
But my sister and I get out, and we start walking to the trailer, and that's where I seen Janie sitting down, and I wish I could remember, but I can't, who the woman was sitting beside her, and there was a policewoman standing up. She called Janie Mum. She called Janie Mum because she said, Mum, it's okay. They're not blaming you. They're not stating that you did anything wrong. It's okay. They just want to look in the trailer so they can rule it out. They just need to check the trailer. And she was going on saying no, she didn't want them to look at something. I can't remember what it was. It was a cupboard or something. And she said about her dog, that she didn't want her dog getting hurt. And the policewoman was telling her that she was impeding an investigation and that she would have to get a search warrant because they have to search the trailer. And the policewoman left. And then my sister and I headed towards the trailer. We got in the trailer. Right away, I went over and hugged Malaya. Of course, I started to break down. I guess once you reach 60, everything makes you cry now. But
Belinda was drinking.
I hugged her, and right away, she thanked me for coming. And I noticed that her grandmother, Patty, was there. She was sitting on the couch. And I asked Malaya if she'd heard anything yet. Did they find anything yet? And she said no. I said, who are the ones outside? And she told me that was Janie, Daniel's mom, and that was Justin, Daniel's brother. But I know she said who the other one was. And like I said, for some reason, it's just gone. So I asked her, I said, what was the last time you seen the kids? Did you see them at all? And she said, no, the last time she saw them was when she put them to bed Thursday night. I said, what time did they get up? She said, between 8 and 8:30. She said, I heard them playing in the other room. She goes, and I kind of drifted off to sleep. She goes, but they must have got out of the door. And I said, that's the door right there. And she said, yes. And she opened and closed the door. It is a fairly quiet door. It's not a loud door, but I mean, it's a...
So it's interesting that you get a time frame, like Belinda says that Malaya said that she last the kids were last there. They must have got up about 8:30. So she gave a time frame. I trust Belinda more than I trust anything else in this to relay whatever their story was in the moment.
Patio doors. So unless you're kind of listening, you really don't hear patio doors open and close. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are going on about it, but you don't overly, unless your ears are tuned for it to know the doors opened up. As a parent, they should have been tuned in.
Mm-hmm.
So then I asked her what the kids were wearing, and she told me what they were wearing. And then I said, we're going to go search. I said, where do you think the kids went? And she said, I don't know. She said, I don't know what to do. I said, well, you're their mom. You know them more than anybody. When you have them outside playing, where do you think they would go, that they were curious and wanted to explore? That she said they spent a lot of time playing up into the woods. So I told her, I said, that's where we'll start our search. We'll start it there and work our way up. So we went back out and we spoke to one of the searchers because we just wanted to know where we were allowed to go. They told us that we could search on their side of the property, but we couldn't search across the road because that's where all the searchers were.
Another reason why Daniel has to be the prime suspect behind this is because it's hard to believe that Malaya and Janie would be collaborating or cooperating and actively trying to get away with something. They both have to have different reasons for behaving the way that they are, and that reason is centered around Daniel. Daniel's control over Malaya, Janie's control over Daniel, and their combined disdain towards Malaya and the kids, and their negative treatment. Maybe.
She said we would rather not have anybody searching. And I understood that, but she said you can search the places that we've already gone through. So I told her, okay, we would do that. So we went up through the woods. You could see where the kids played. You could tell that the kids really enjoyed the yard. Their toys were everywhere. The dog barked. From the time we entered the property, it just became background noise. It never stopped barking. We went up through the woods. We made it to a field in the back, and we combed the woods beyond that. And then we seen all these wood roads going, these old pathways going. So we were up there for about an hour, and we headed back down. And I went back into the trailer, and Malaya had Meadow cradled on her hip, and there was a couple of groups of people, but I wasn't paying any attention to the people at that point. So I don't know who they were. And she was going to different groups, talking with people. So I went up and I told her, I said, look, we searched up here. I said, now there's a field back there. I said, do you ever take the kids back there? Do they know that area? And she said, yes, that she's had them back there. I said, okay. I said, so we're going to go up the road and we're going to cut across the property and come back in to where that field is. So we left again, and that's what we did. We went up past their place, and there's another road that goes in past where the train tracks are. We went up and through there, and we cut across. We come across a couple of brooks, but right away it was hitting me that there's just no way these kids would be in these woods. It was just like a jungle. That we looked through deer paths, and a lot of those were blocked off. Rabbit trails, a lot of animals will use the same trails. We followed what trails we could, and they always came to dead ends. We walked the woods road for, oh my gosh, for about an hour and a half. We walked the woods roads, and all the time I'm calling out for them. And nothing, just nothing other than ribbons. There were ribbons everywhere. Everywhere throughout the woods. That's all you seen was ribbons. So we come back out. And we took a break in my sister's car. And I said, I'm going to go in and tell Malaya that we're done. So I went back in and I spoke with Malaya, spoke with Patty. Patty was telling me about selling her home. And that she was worried sick. And you could see she was worried sick. She was pretty upset. Malaya was talking to that same woman that was sitting at her table, that I don't know who she was. I come back out. When I come back out to the car, Cindy pulled up, and Cindy had someone with her. I don't know who it was. She didn't ring. I didn't recognize her. And I know, I can't remember his name, Cindy's husband. He was there, and they started to walk into the driveway. And then, oh gosh, was that before? No, I'm sorry. I skipped over where the chief come. The chief come before Cindy.
No, I think Lana King said it was the chief from Millbrook, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's who I believed it was. Yes, that's who I believe it was. He had introduced himself, and he stated where he was from, and he stated that they're the member of the band of Millbrook. So I wasn't paying attention. I said she lives there. So he thanked me very much, and he went in. So I waited about another 20 minutes, and then I went in again. And he was saying to Malaya that they were going to have a prayer at the table. So I figured I'd give them their privacy for that it was with the other band members, that they were doing a prayer. They were all sitting around the table. So I thought that I didn't have the right to stand around. So I come back out, and there was other people standing in the driveway, but that's when my sister and I decided we'd call it a day. And it was a pretty tiring day. So we left. Once we left, I guess that's when all hell broke loose. Because as we were getting ready to leave, Cindy pulls in. She goes into the driveway with the woman, and then I see her husband go in. And as we're cooling down the air conditioner in the car, then all of a sudden I seen Cindy's husband come out, and he gets into a vehicle. And then that's when I said, we may as well pull out of here. So we did. That took place Saturday. It was around from 10 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. And I think my sister said it was around between 4 and 4:30 when we left. Sunday, I didn't go searching. That my niece and friends of hers, they're hikers, so they stated they would go for me. So they went Sunday. Then Monday, my sister and I decided, we were going to go back. So we had my nephew, and he had a 4-wheel machine because we wanted to take the trails back further towards the pipeline. And like I said, there's trails that go everywhere throughout there. So we started searching right away. And when we were done with that search, I come back out, and they stayed out by the road, and I started to walk in because I wanted to let Malaya know that we were we were searching to see if she had any more information. And that's when I had met Logan. That when I walked into the driveway and I said hi to them, and Justin was really upset. He was crying. Daniel was out talking to reporters at the end of the driveway. And Justin was really, really upset. So right away I was thinking they must have got some kind of bad news. So when I walked up close, right away, Logan said, "Who are you? And what do you want?" And I just told her, I said,
Whoa. What's with the dude there, Logan? She's got a real attitude around there. I wonder what that's about. And what all hell breaking loose is referring to exactly.
"Don't get mosey with me." I said, I'm the grandmother on the biological father's side. And right away she apologized. She apologized profusely. And then she proceeded to tell me that Malaya left on Saturday. It struck me as very, very odd. Because I said to my sister afterwards, I mean, I know they were probably somewhat close with the kids because they were there for 2 years. But I said, he seemed really devastated. So it did strike me as just a little off. Because he really did.
You know, in this circumstance, Daniel can really hide his emotion in the fact that he was so possessive over Malaya in the circumstance. And her leaving, he can tap into that emotion fairly easy because, you know, he wanted to maintain his control over her. There was a dispute over her leaving. He didn't sound like he necessarily wanted her to go.
Did look devastated. That was the other thing I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When Malaya stated about who Janie was and who Justin was, she said they live in the trailer out back. She used the words they.
And
they live in the trailer out back. Oh, you mean Les RV? the Earth House.
Yeah.
And my sister and I afterwards thought, wow, that's such a small trailer. But it's, I mean...
Yeah, well, you're just overlooking a major point there, Belinda. Why is she out there in the RV? Well, because she doesn't want to be around the rest of the family. It disturbs her peace and quiet in that sense. I wonder what sort of agreement that they had. Arrangement.
People live how they live, so that was the end of that thought. And it wasn't until I seen a couple of clips from the news briefing stating that Justin didn't live on the property. And I thought, well, geez, maybe we heard wrong, but I was positive. She said they. She said they. And then when I heard that Justin has a place up the road, but then I heard Logan's interview being broadcasted where she was on TikTok and somebody had asked about Justin and she said, well, no, he's got his own problems right now, that he's in the middle of a divorce. And then right away, bells went off in my head and it's like, well, he's in the middle of a divorce. Well, then maybe Malaya was right. He was staying with Janie at that particular time.
Ah, now it makes a little bit more sense. Maybe he was. They're really all... Could you imagine the added stress for Janie from the landlord's perspective if there is not only Daniel and all of his crew moving back in, taking over the trailer, but now on top of that, Justin's going through divorce and probably for the same reasons Daniel is, and he's moving back. He can't stay away. He can't stay near the wife and the kids, or his wife at that moment in time. He's got to sleep back there with Janie and the dog in that RV. Oh, what a fantastic situation. But talk about a scenario which is going to add a little bit of pressure to everybody. People will be suffering from cabin fever before you know it, getting at each other's throats. And who do you think is going to receive the brunt of everybody's bad moods, those children. All of that will affect the kids. Well, it did here, I bet. It's just another piece. It's just another piece that tells us that they were under a lot of pressure and there was confrontation in the household. There was a scenario. One person wanted to leave, the other person didn't want that person to leave. There's a power struggle. Malaya wanted to leave because of the way that she was being treated. End of. Who cares about the finite details, but it all comes down to that she didn't like how she was being treated. And she kept giving Daniel the benefit of the doubt until he had no more turns left. Like, you can only do something for so long before, it forces the other person to act in that circumstance.
But I still don't know. Everybody is saying that no, he didn't stay there, but I know she said they. And if he's in the middle of a divorce, my mind states, well, him and his wife probably aren't staying in the same house together. But I know Darren, when he first spoke to you, I know he stated that he didn't even know that Janie lived there in the trailer. Malaya was totally off. At first, I thought it was shock. But when I come home Saturday night, and I kept thinking about her behavior because it was very odd to me. And then it dawned on me, she couldn't be in shock because this is a crisis that just happened the day before. So this is still a panic mode. I know, because I remember when my daughter went missing once. A part of me inside, I'm sorry, but a part of me inside died. Now when she left with those babies gone, I don't know how she could do that, to be honest. I love the Malaya that I knew, but I don't know how any mother can leave the place where her babies were. I'm only the grandmother, and I didn't want to leave at all. I wanted to stay there the whole time and sleep in a car. I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all. So I figured if she left, something tells me she had to have had a very, very good reason to leave. Is it because she knows her babies are alive? I really, really hope so. But this other part of me tells me no. No, I can't see kids are missing and calling into 911. I don't believe CPS would have been contacted right away. I only think, to be honest, I think CPS was probably contacted through the RCMP. I think they were the ones who called CPS after the fact. Not just...
Well, they would have to, because it involves children, so they'd be notified just out of procedure, right?
The state, they had the crime unit there. Right after? Was the crime unit there on Friday? Right. So to me, that tells me that while they say they're there for every missing child, something tells me something struck them off, and I do believe that they were the ones that contacted CPS. I do think Malaya called her mom. I think Malaya might have called her mom, if it's true that her mom arrived minutes after the police. She does.
Yeah, if that's true, and it probably is, and it would be easily verifiable for the police. If that's true, it's just another angle that their story was blown apart, because it contradicts their narrative about the timeline. So calling Cindy, or it sounds like she has an ongoing conversation with Patty and Cindy, so it probably never stops. There's a lot of talking going on between the two. So it's not too hard to think that, based upon we'll call it the confrontation that they probably had. There's probably a disagreement, and she was stressed out and started talking to her mom and had plans to go. Like she was in on her issues with Daniel at the time. That conversation, those conversations, well, you can't get voice. Those conversations would be interesting to hear about her issues with Daniel. We just get a sense of it.
Live in Truro. It is a bit of a distance away. So for her to be there that quick, then Malaya had to have called her mom before she called the police. And I don't question that part because, I mean, hell, I'd probably do the same thing. If I'm to be honest, when I first seen the property, like I said, I had passed it many a time and it always looked like a junkyard. I don't want to be mean. Yes, it kind of looked like a junkyard. I did afterwards, I seen the little fenced-in area where the kids could play, which wasn't too bad. But I don't look down on that, to be honest, that part, with people thinking it's dangerous having all this stuff around. Because I remember being a kid myself, and I know when my son was a kid, those were great things to play around because they're not normal toys. And I walked into the trailer. We went in through the front door where it's a little porch there on the front. We went in through that door. And you walk right into the kitchen area. The table's right across from the door. The living room is off to the right. There's a wood stove. It's not quite in the middle of the living room floor, but it juts out in the living room floor a fair bit. Recyclables were everywhere. Piled up bags everywhere. The counters were so full you couldn't pick out any one thing because it was really piled up with a lot of stuff. You feel so helpless that you want to do something. Very good reason to leave. Is it because she knows her babies are alive? I really, really hope so.
I have to re-listen to that part.
But this other part of me tells me no. No, I can't see kids are missing and calling into 911. I don't believe CPS would have been contacted right away. I only think, to be honest, I think CPS was probably contacted through the RCMP. I think they were the ones who called CPS after the fact. Not just the state. They had the crime unit there. Right after? Was the crime unit there on Friday? Right. So to me, that tells me that while they say they're there for every missing child, something tells me something struck them off. And I do believe that they were the ones that contacted CPS. I do think Malaya called her mom. I think Malaya might have called her mom. If it's true that her mom arrived minutes after the police, she does live in Truro. It is a bit of a distance away. So for her to be there that quick, then Malaya had to have called her mom.
What's my opinion on the pink blanket? I don't know if I have an opinion. I don't know much about it other than where it is in proximity to the home, or where they say it is. I don't know what to say. It'd be interesting to know, we have visual confirmation that it matches a blanket that was then in the garbage. What's interesting to me, I can't speak to what's significant about the blanket, of course, because I'm not a part of it. But what's interesting to me about the whole scenario with the blanket is how, again, the story adapts and changes with the questions that come surrounding it. So in the pink blankets sense, Daniel first denied it was the pink blanket that it turned out to be, like whether it was Lily's or one that was hanging in front of a window, but the one that he says matched the one that was in the trash, and how that story actually came to be. tells me that it was fabricated. They're bullshitting. There's something more to it, probably. Whether it's a piece of evidence that Daniel's trying to dispose of, if there's a lot more evidence, and that was why he was spending so much time down on the pipeline with his other buddies trying to obscure the scene and dispose of different evidence, potentially. Why is it out there to begin with? Who knows? I don't know. Why is it? I don't know how big it is. Why it's, Janie even acknowledges as it being in the trash, and she knew it went in the trash. And it's funny that there's a whole story behind it that Daniel couldn't recall, considering that he was a part of it. There's something to it. There's something with it. I don't know what it is, but it's one other thing that Daniel and Janie seem to have not been straight up on, and they're inconsistent over this period of time. Of course, now they can adapt and match their stories up, but that damage has already been done in my eyes, in my opinion. There's been talk whether or not it was a part of perhaps staging something. Well, maybe, but again, we don't have enough information to really determine that. It could just as well be part of other garbage that Daniel had to get rid of. It wouldn't be unheard of to have to get rid of all kinds of evidence in this circumstance, considering that we're suspect that something else has happened. Probably something violent. Okay, there's 2 kids that are dead. One would think that there would be maybe DNA evidence on their clothes or on clothes that were around them. Like maybe those 2 sweaters had a significant amount of DNA on them and they had to be disposed of just ahead of the helicopters and the drones as Daniel was running through waist deep water. Almost getting killed. We're almost getting killed every day, all day. Oh, God. Super Dan, yeah. In your opinion, the blanket is not relevant other than it shows Dee's paranoia to think it was planted to frame him? Is that maybe where that came from, Drippy? I don't know. It could very well not be significant. It could be planted as a red herring. Don't know. I'm not too wrapped up about its significance at this point in time, other than it's something for them to focus and talk about, as opposed to Jack and Lily and why they're not around anymore. Daisy, you think Justin may have more of a conscience? Oh, Jesus. You think he may know? I don't know. I think the only one that's important that knows is Daniel and Malaya. Hate to point out an obvious, probably already understand that too. They should press Daniel's brother for answers. I don't know, Daisy. Not really any reason to. You're assuming that he knows something. You don't need to go and question somebody else at that point in time unless there's reason to. It'd be interesting. You're not wrong. It'd be interesting to interview him and see what he does know, because, Daniel and Malaya were actively trying to surround themselves with a bunch of family and friends in order to sell this story right away. That was their intent. They had to sell this bullshit lie. Put them all on the spot. Hijack their emotions. Try to convince them of this bullshit narrative, of this mystery. But it's really not, even though as shallow and as superficial as their bullshit story is, it's their behavior surrounding it all and how they've behaved and what they've stated after the fact that really sells it to people on just how guilty that these people are. meaning Janie and Daniel and Malaya. Malaya and Daniel for sure, and Janie is just as guilty as this at this point, even though the judge would probably consider it understandable that you would lie for your own kin in a circumstance like this. You probably have your own reasons. You know, if not for Janie and her shitty, angry ways, we wouldn't be so sure on how guilty Daniel was. I don't think necessarily Janie wanted it to be this way. It was probably something that happened out of her control. That, you know, direct control, even though that she probably tries to exude and flex on other people and utilize what control she has around there. Maybe she'll just pick up that phone and call Malaya. Tell her how horrible of a parent she is. Look what my Daniel has to do for you. Daniel shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing that. Daniel needs to be out here helping me with this fence right now. Daniel needs to be cleaning up this yard. The rental property. You think lean on Justin too? Janie's not going to talk other than how precious Daniel is. What are you trying to say? You need somebody to go down there with a bottle of Johnny Walker's and bribe him? What if he doesn't drink? I'll bring some of the chronic, some of the stickiest of the icky. Oh, you're going... They're all upset and crying. They're all a country song, Daisy Rose. Their wives are leaving them because they treat them like shit. They never learned how to treat a woman because they all were raised by Janie. Just a sec, Chair Bear.
Before she called the police. And I don't question that part because, I mean, hell, I'd probably do the same thing. If I'm to be honest, when I first seen the property, like I said, I had passed it many a time and it always looked like a junkyard. I don't want to be mean. Yes, it kind of looked like a junkyard. I did afterwards, I seen the little fenced-in area where the kids could play, which wasn't too bad. But I don't look down on that, to be honest, that part, with people thinking it's dangerous having all the stuff around. Because I remember being a kid myself, and I know when my son was a kid, those were great things to play around because they're not normal toys. And I walked into the trailer. We went in through the front door where it's a little porch there on the front. We went in through that door. And you walk right into the kitchen area. The table's right across from the door. The living room is off to the right. There's a wood stove. It's not quite in the middle of the living room floor, but it juts out in the living room floor a fair bit. Recyclables were everywhere. Piled up bags everywhere. The counters were so full you couldn't pick out any one thing because it was really piled up with a lot of stuff. You feel so helpless that you want to do something. So in the end, the only thing I could do...
Wait a second. I thought Daniel was looking after all of that. So the place was a tiff. Counters overflowing with useless garbage and things like that. Recyclables can't be thrown out. They don't want to throw that out. Garbage all over the outside. What the hell is he doing? Nobody's cleaning up. Granted, it's not that big of a place. It doesn't take long to mess up. But it shouldn't be too long to clean up. especially when Belinda's mentioning it. What would be the biggest thing that they would need to hide at this moment in time? I would have to think they don't want to be questioned about the problems that they had in their relationship. What was the prime reason why Malaya wanted to leave? And Daniel doesn't want to address these issues, or doesn't pretend that, or doesn't believe that they exist in that sense. Daniel claims he's doing it all, but nothing's getting done in that sense. Amanda Graham says, I think that they met their demise through anger. More precise, Daniel's rage. I would expect so. And it's probably, kills the mood, man, when you keep, treating her like shit. I wonder what prompted all of that. It had to have been a slow process. Maybe Janie was in Daniel's ear in that sense. Janie was always giving him bad advice on how he needs to treat situations and what things are supposed to be like and how he needs to act in the circumstance. Coaching Daniel in his marriage. I think so too, Slim. Janie is a bigger problem. And I mean, even for Daniel, it's got to be annoying AF. It's got to be annoying to have your mom in your life, especially a mother like Janie, all the time. It's annoying. You have to placate to her. Do you know? So it's an added sense of powerlessness for Daniel. But a pivot point for his moods. Daisy Rose. I used to think that too. Where do you see? Let me read that. Oh no, Daisy, I don't think so. It's very highly unlikely in this circumstance. Unfortunately, that's your mind trying to simplify it. But we seem to have these conversations time and time again. Listen, you don't know enough about these situations just to all of a sudden think that the kids got into substances and plunked over and died. It wouldn't call for such need to lie and deceive and lead on with this bullshit story. Especially when there's so much abuse at hand. There's substance abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. For the kids just to wander into something that was a freak accident. I'm sure that they would want you to believe that because it's a lot better than what really happened. It's just too easy. Not grounds for a grand conspiracy cover-up. Yeah, you're still holding out minimal hope, Mr. Hemme? You're hoping that they're just being hidden? Well, there's no way I buy the hidden story. Whatever makes you guys sleep at night, but the obvious is right there in front of you. You see the trick there? Now you hold it, effectively, you've just fallen for Daniel and Darren's bullshit in that sense. The whole reason why they came and started convincing people of what something other than happened. No. This isn't too difficult to figure out. The worst thing happened. He lost control of himself. He did something. And when he did something again. And it had everything to do with his disagreements with Malaya, his conflicts with Malaya. And let's not forget what exacerbates everything, the substance abuse, specifically the amphetamine that turns him into Mr. Hyde. That really turns him into a full sociopath. And it's the damage from that. The psychological damage from that is what made him lose his shit. Putin's just fries with cheese curds and gravy on it, Slim.
Is talk to you guys. I'm an open book, to be honest, and most times I don't understand why nobody else is. I believe everybody should be an open book.
Right?
But I do. It does bother me when I hear Daniel say that, well, he knows certain things, but he can't say certain things. It bothers me when I hear Darren say, well, he knows the names of certain people. He believes he knows who took them. But he doesn't want to jeopardize things. And with me, it's...
I know.
I want my grandkids back.
No.
And I don't care who's got secrets, who tells them not to tell. Everything you know, it might open up a whole new other place to go, to put a closure to this, to give us answers. I can understand some people in the beginning when I first started speaking out.
Yeah.
I had a lot of things come my way because of my son's decisions and choices. And right away, I shut my Facebook off and I made everything private. And it lasted all of maybe a day and a half. And then I thought, well, why do you care what people say? Why do you care what they think?
Right.
You want people to know these kids? You want people to talk about these kids? Well, let them look at your Facebook. Let them say what they want. It doesn't matter. The roads...
Exactamundo.
These are bare roads. The paths that are all up through the woods there, they're fairly bare. There's a couple of areas that were muddy and wet, but most of them are dry roads.
Oh, yes. Friends, the link to this particular video sequencing part 1 of Belinda's time on It's a Criming Shame and her statements is available through the link in the description of this video. Yeah, Lori Green, it would have been a better story if the bear took 2 kids, 2 sweaters, and a bit of that blanket. Yeah, you're incorporating the bear into the story at this point in time. This probably was the bear. 'Cause bears tend to just do that. Kidnap my kids. Hey, it could happen. It's a possibility. Barbara. I wondered that too. Outside at night on purpose as punishment or accidentally locked out. Yeah, I've been thinking that, Belinda, not that it's not plausible in my mind, but I think about that. I do. I think how easy that could have possibly happened. You know, and that might talk or speak to the reason that they focused on that sliding door. But then again, when you see how small the house is, you only got a couple of choices there. That's buying too much into the false narrative, in my opinion. Something else happened, and it doesn't even rhyme with anything that they told us. All of the most important parts of this story are left out, and we have put together the pieces, the things that we listened to about what we just mentioned, their confrontations, the substance abuse, the neglect that was going on because of poor mental health, and what was compounding that, what was the key factor in, driving down the mental health around the house. And it would probably have to be Janie, among other things that Daniel was ignoring, excuse me. Like his math problem. I don't know about that, Bonnie Randall. You're talking about the Fort's overnight theory makes everything MBM said in her interview makes sense. MBM. I don't know of any Malaya interview in that sense. There's not one out there, Bonnie. Are you referring to her statement? That rehearsed statement in front of the camera? Barbara Osprey, so Malaya said she went to bed early Thursday, but called Cindy late. Did something happen late Thursday? That's what we're saying. Kids lost or hurt then, and she was calling for advice. It's an interesting observation. So there's that to factor in too. If that actually did occur, that conversation between Malaya and her mother, that would have been around the time that we're suspicious of, wouldn't it? That's a good point, Barbara M. Thank you. Look, have me thinking. I wonder what time that call between Cindy and Malaya occurred. Probably the kids would have probably been in bed already. So why would you be calling your mother so late on a Thursday night? Don't you have like a time, before 8 o'clock or nothing after 10 o'clock, or a rule that you incorporate around your house that you don't engage in any sort of phone calls after a certain time? Seems to be late to be calling Cindy, doesn't it? Ooh, I like that, Barbara M. Yeah, Barbara, you're bringing up something very important. Thank you. Wade even mentioned a midnight call. Really? We're going to have to go back and listen to Wade again. Okay. I wonder what was going on that particular night. Whatever was going on since December and earlier than that, if they had planned to move Malaya out in December and she had second thoughts. But that same conflict, it would have not been anything new. It would have been the same old issues. Daniel was probably getting high too much on that meth and not spending enough time around Malaya and doing the family thing. You can see he wasn't. If you're doing the family thing, that also includes keeping the yard clean, unfortunately. Being himself in that sense. Maybe the real Daniel was coming out. Cindy knows. Cindy would probably know. I'd say Wade probably knows because Cindy probably talks a little bit about it. Need to hear some of that bedroom talk, some of that pillow talk. Good. Thank you very much, Barbara. You know, you got me focused on that a little bit. I needed some direction. Not unless you put... Nah. They weren't OD'd in cough medicine. NYC boomer. The only reason to conspire to cover up is if you physically had something to do with their demise. And in my opinion, I believe that's occurred in this circumstance. Anything else, even if they accidentally came into something and overdosed, is what you're saying, that a 4 and a 6-year-old OD'd on Daniel's drugs, is what you're saying. Pretty sure that they keep their most valued items up away so that they could enjoy them themselves at a later time. Very low probability of that happening. Especially around addicts. Not that it's impossible, because for all we know, it could be a fentanyl thing and they could have gotten into it. It's a danger, it's a possibility, but low, not very likely, considering all of the other indicators of abuse here. You don't go into a serial killer's fucking house and ask him if he killed them with the fucking shitty roast beef that's in the fridge. I don't know. Slim, Malaya's calling her nurse mom. Oh, her nurse mom. Yeah. Daniel flipping lights on. Malaya calling her nurse mom. They're having a disagreement. We'll see. It would probably... How hard could their fights have been? What would a fight between Malaya and Daniel look like, I wonder? What would a disagreement between the two look like? Malaya probably just picks up Meadow and uses her as a human shield in that circumstance and tells Daniel to be quiet and not to wake the baby. Don't raise your voice with me. Don't raise your voice around here. And that would piss Daniel off, and he'd have to turn around to destroy that front door because she's using Meadow against him in that moment. You're not going anywhere. You get back in that bedroom and sit there and shut your mouth, girl. You're going to sit in there and love me like the man I am. Here, let me take a selfie in the bathroom for you. AB, if they're unalived, can you tell us how, in your opinion? See, Tammy, I think it would be inappropriate, because when it comes to prosecuting, those details aren't necessary to get the conviction in that circumstance. I think it wouldn't be, I do have opinions on it, but I need more information. They saw a violent end. Now we would need more information, obviously, to come to a determination. I'm not just going to start offing all the different ways that a person can murder another person just for the sake of hopefully being right on one. Do you know what I mean? I don't need, not that, like, it's a cool question, Tammy, I get it, and I love the question. It's just unnecessary information, right? It's not the type of person that I am. I don't want to all of a sudden get morbid and think about all the different ways that these poor children that we're caring about met their fate, especially with no real direct information other than the fact that they're covering up to the degree that they are would indicate that they're covering up their physical their physicality towards the children. But I'm open to it not being physical. I'm open to it not being physical, but it's still Daniel's responsibility, whether that would be a really poor choice of a way that he dealt with the children that led to their demise. Like, for example, people are talking about the overnight in the caves theory, or overnight in the little cabins that they made up in the woods, those little forts theory, as a form of punishment, because maybe they never shut the hell up. Maybe they were interrupting. Maybe they were doing what they were told. I could see that being a possibility, because he's a dumbass. You're a dumbass. You're so anxious for people just to buy based off your word that you're just a fantastic father to these two kids, when everything else around you speaks differently to that. And you can see that you're not, Daniel. It's really easy for a person like Daniel, who's abusing methamphetamine, to be continuing to lie and deceive. Second nature. It's second nature to an addict. It comes very easily. You say whatever you have to say in the moment to get yourself through. And you soon find how easy it is to lie, and effective. No matter what, Daniel is responsible for murder one in this case. And beyond that, so many other things. If anything happened outside your control, there's no reason to have to cover it up. You're not going to be going to jail in that sense. Something occurred that would have guaranteed his getting caught and prosecuted for this crime. Is that, like what Mike says, is that what he spent most of his time doing with his boys down at the pipeline? A strong possibility. I don't even think about that yet, Drippy, but I guess you've got a point. Like, that's a big indicator, like, well, not an indicator, but I mean, it's a big thing right now for them not even to feel remorseful in that sense. Like, really upset with yourself at how, or the other person, how they could leave or not secure the back door, that the kids could just, get out in that circumstance. Their own neglect. But they admitted to all of that. They volunteered you that information. Like, yeah, we agree with you. We were really bad people. I'm sorry. Like, mistakes as parents happen in that circumstance. But yeah, they're still responsible, even though you would never know it. Because they act as though they don't even care about Jack and Lily. Caring about Jack and Lily at a time when they're missing would look a lot like doing something to try to find them. Not being satisfied with what is going on because they don't listen to me. They're out here trying to rule out a search, and I know the kids aren't out here, and it seems like we're spinning our wheels and not getting a whole lot done. I'm anxious. But again, Daniel doesn't have any natural feelings towards the children, because they were annoying little piles of stink poop when he first met them. But somehow it made him broody enough to want to father another child with Malaya in order to keep her around a little bit longer. What do you think the reason why is he knocked you up in the first place? Guess what, baby? We're going to live happily ever after in my mom's fucking trailer while she sits in the back RV and monitors everything. Like Big Brother. That's the CI Janie back there. This is not an ideal situation. They're not there because this is a happy family. They're there because they've got no other place. They've got nothing going on. They're falling on hard times. To make it even worse, Daniel's got himself a math addiction, and not to algebra, the crystal math. I don't know exactly what happened. I was drifting in and out of sleep. Well, what does that have to do with what happened? What does you drifting in and out of sleep, other than, tell people that you're hiding behind an illusion? No, Chair Bear. Not right this sec. Hold on. We'll get it in a moment. Hold on, Chair. There are too many children that drown in a bathtub, driven in a lake, etc., etc. Too many. Not saying that happened. Margaret, I think, they probably never really communicated or clicked to begin with. Like, what was keeping this relationship together? Why did you have to move into the trailer in the first place? Into Janie's trailer. That's Janie's trailer, by the way. So to Janie, this sounded like this is going to be a fantastic long-term solution to whatever was going on, because Janie could just sit back there, kick her heels up in that old RV, the Earth RV, and collect all of the government's child benefits for the next 20 years. She'll monitor things. She'll call you up when the kids are outside, need to put their boots or coats on. Maybe she'll run out some poison snacks to you now and then. Wonder what those snacks were. A couple of Molson Canadians. Oh, yeah, for sure, Drippy. Well, she's been a mother. She raised 2 fantastic kids out there. In all honesty, we are in a housing crisis. Yeah, it is tough out there, Drippy. So for people in their situation, oh yeah, I'm not saying anything about people falling on hard times. It happens to a lot of people. But the point to all of this and bringing it up isn't to laugh at them. It's to tell you the type of stresses that they're under around there. And when you get a bunch of individuals around with pressure like this, it doesn't take too long for people to start pointing the finger and trying to find a solution or a reason for their problems in that moment. Oh, I love you, Lindy. Lots of love back at you, girl. Amanda Graham, are you speaking about the Malaya interview or the statement she gave way back in the beginning of the case? That she looked like a different person? What CBC interview? Malaya looked a complete different person in her CBC interview. It was actually on CTV. But yeah, I think you're talking about the same one. Maybe it was CBC. I thought it was CTV. I wonder if we're not getting the CCTV footage of the children because they're in the same clothes that they went missing in. Oh, I think so, Ronnie, but I'm not sure the exact reasons. I think, the reason we're not getting information is because we never get information. Cops don't give us information to satisfy our curiosity or to make them look guilty or innocent in a circumstance, right? They're not giving us the information because it's still an ongoing investigation that we're not a part of. Like, it's a big old club and we're not a part of it. Even though we do a lot of talking about the case. But yeah, the reasons for withholding evidence and even stuff that they've mentioned doesn't mean that we're privy to any of the information in the investigation. Just as much as we need to know that's relevant to perhaps finding Jack and Lily. I get a kick out of Daniel saying that. I get a kick out of him saying that, what they were wearing is irrelevant. It's only relevant in the first few hours. I think you might have fucked that one up. Oh, shit. It's irrelevant. Somebody asked him that through a message. It's not relevant, It's not relevant in this situation. It's just an indicator of a sensitivity, right? Demonstrating some avoidance. Fuck, you didn't need statement analysis to see that one. Jeez, I'm laughing to myself. Must be going nuts. Oh, Lindy, thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate that.
Retard alert!
No, I don't mean
Retard
that for
alert,
you. I hit the
class.
wrong one there. That's not for you. Thank you very much, Esther. £5. That's very, very generous of you, darling. We'll be talking about this situation the way it should be talked about. None of this fluff. There's enough fluff. There's enough fluff over here. But we talk about it a little bit differently. We're on a ban Daniel Martell over here. He comes in this chat, you ban him right away, Lindy. I'm not even open to hearing him talk. Go over to Mike Demands and talk to him. NYC Boomer, they didn't even bathe those kids and put them to sleep with the street clothes that they had on. Yeah, they kind of mix and match, NYC Boomer. You know, if you go back and take a look at the statements, she mentioned a pajama top, but they still had socks on and they were still dressed from the night before. It's not clear. But what is clear is that they really didn't know what the hell that they were wearing in the first place, because it was so damn long since they changed them, which tells you right away that, one, that they were neglecting the kids, two, the story the story is fabricated and they're bullshitting you. Because really, who doesn't, if you want the people in the moment to know that they were just here, but yet you don't want to identify them or answer any questions. You don't want to answer when people ask you a question about it. No, it's just they were here. They've been sleeping. Nope, they were sleeping. I was sleeping. It happened when we were all sleeping. They just wandered out and fucked off. Really, really suspect. Not just because it reeks of the minimal neglect that you can pick out. That minimal neglect is there to hide the whole lot more of all kinds of other different wrongdoings. And no matter what at this point in time, the one person out there who has all of the information that we want is Daniel. The guilty party, the suspect, has all of the information that we want. And people just love to interview him and bounce questions off him. He's always going to be in a position over us, in a position of being able to manipulate the narrative. And people, even though they hear that all of the time, they don't recognize it, or they disregard it. The clicks and views factor. You can do what you want. But it's there's no way I'm selling out like that. That motherfucker is a douchebag. Now everybody can be forgiven, but the truth needs to come out first. Oh, you never have to thank me for not giving Daniel a platform. That just comes natural. No fucking possible way. I'd rather talk about you than talk to you there, Daniel. No, not unless there was a reason to. If there was a genuine reason to give a person a real interview and a talking to because people were running the risk of putting all of these false allegations onto him, that would be completely different. Daniel looks so suspicious in this. Suspicious is just an understatement. There's no way that they didn't have anything to do with Jack and Lily going missing, is a more accurate view upon the situation. The story that they came forward with isn't even good enough. It doesn't float. It's not because I don't like it. It's not because it doesn't satisfy. It is bullshit. Even though that we were force-fed it. All of it, by the way. No, do you know what? Where did I read that? Amanda Graham. I can understand from the perspective of maybe the curious person having Daniel on my channel because you think I don't mess around. that's an entertainment factor. I know how guilty he is. I'm not looking to play Geraldo Rivera. Not at all. I'm like truly concerned about the scenario that's leading people down these roads. Now, I would interview Daniel if he was behind bars in a prison setting, absolutely. But at this point in time, he's got a need to be out here disinforming and manipulating and staying on top of things, because that's the way the ball bounces in a circumstance like this when you're trying to get away with something. I recognize that. Knowing that he's desperate for that, it would be silly for me to even attempt to try to transform that into some sort of entertainment for everybody. That would be exploiting the situation, because I would be enabling the key suspect in this. That would be doing a great injustice. And then how the fuck would I get back up here the next day and tell you that I care about this situation? It would be another thing if Daniel or Malaya's story were even remotely believable at this point. It's so unbelievable that it could have possibly occurred this way, that even talking to the guy in that sense would be enabling him. No, I think more of myself than that. I'll talk to him after the cops have him in cuffs. That's all. I'm not saying anything other than that. And that's a real not wanting to interfere in the case. You know, some people have another opinion, whatever they need in the moment. And some people, like, I like Dolly's format in this circumstance, because anybody can just call into the phone number and talk in that sense. Whereas if you invite him up and ask him to take a link and incorporate him into your community and your channel, that's a different scenario. Dolly's not doing that. Dolly allowed them to call in and speak on an open call-in show about their scenario. So you have that layer, between you and exploiting the case. Now, I don't even need to comment on that, but I mean, it's just too much to me, in my opinion, that, you know, you're under the guise of doing this for the kids, you're using your platform to facilitate all kinds of disinformation and sell people things that are related and have Jack and Lily's name and face all over them. Like, you've got to be just as sociopathic as the fucking suspect. There's no possible way that I could ever do that and turn around and tell you that I cared about a scenario. Like, there's so much more interesting things to talk about in these circumstances. I understand, and I'm all for capitalism. I'm all for making money. But you don't have to incorporate the two. You can even talk about it and still make money. But to push merch on people or push these schemes on people where the viewer makes it, you know, you're convincing the viewer that by clicking the link and sending money or buying this product, it's somehow going to help Jack and Lily in this circumstance, undermines your credibility in the moment. And it's not like that. You're the one who's wrong in that circumstance, no matter how badly you don't want to be in the wrong, no matter how well-intentioned you are, you're still fucking wrong. That's it. That's called integrity. That would be what it is. And I'm not trying to tell you that somebody else is lacking in integrity in that, but I'm just trying to point out where that line would be in these circumstances. You want to fucking help out? Why don't you go all out and buy them a couple tombstones? Oh, you got deep pockets there, money bags. No, I'm not trying to talk bad about the person, but people think that they're doing way more than they're really doing in these circumstances. But don't let that, I don't want to, that's just, everybody can go overboard and everybody can go too far based off of what you think in that moment that's happening or what's true and what's not. In this particular circumstance with Jack and Lily, there's no reason to even be talking about donations or money at any point in time up until, long after we figure out what the hell has gone on here. Anything else is a distraction away. That's why Daniel shows up at the prayer circle or whatever the hell they're having, the vigil. Excuse me. Hey, Chelsea, good to see you. I'm gonna pull a Ziggy with Chelsea. Chelsea, are you single? I'm gonna marry Belinda's daughter. That way, when I go down to Nova Scotia to bring you content, I have a place to stay, and it's gonna save me money and make me more AdSense money in the long run. There wouldn't even be anything wrong with that. But I'm thinking, because you know what got me into thinking about that? I'm not actually serious, Chelsea, but that's what Ziggy did in the Summer Wells case. That's what got her hooked in, and I'm going, uh-oh, I'm having a Ziggy moment. But look, it's a long way between where I am and New Glasgow. I was going to fly down to New Glasgow because I got motivated by listening to Dolly over there. He's like, after he's talking about this scenario about being misrepresented in the LA Times, he's over there talking as though he's this journalist covering these cases. And Dolly. And do you know what? Actually, technically he is. And he's doing something that a lot of us appreciate and more people really need to do and come back to, which is the Fifth Estate. Citizen journalism, especially in a time like we're living in now, where we are so lax that we get all of our information and assume that the information that we're getting is this or that or even true or remotely true or not without an agenda attached to it. There's no fucking agenda here, bro. I've been stuck in this particular... When I was in Cubs, there's a boy named Dennis that went to Cubs. We walked to Cubs with my friend Andrew, and he ended up going missing after a Cub Scout meeting on our way home in my hometown. And that was my first introduction to all of this stuff. And what was that killer clown in Chicago? He was just being busted at the same time at that point. And, at such a early age. And I was a Cub Scout. I was just a kid, just a little kid. But I was stuck into trying to figure out what the hell went on with all of my friends back at that point in time. And I've been, and that's a true crime OG in that circumstance, looking back on it now. But it triggers something inside of you, in my mind. And it's nothing to do with the mystery or wanting to emote my emotions or capture the attention. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with protecting our children and knowing the evils that lurk in the minds of men. Knowing these scenarios. You're just thinking it's a Ziggy moment, Slim? Well, Belinda's probably more my age. Gonna have to move Cody into the RV in the backyard. I heard that's a thing now. I'm not even coming down hard on him. Yeah, housing is horrible. Rents up. People are being priced out of market, first-time buyers. It's almost they're making it impossible to even afford a home anymore. Something's got to be done. So my nice thing to say about them, at least they have the gumption to go and at least recycle material and try to slap together some sort of housing. Yeah, that takes a fair sense of balls to be able to do that. And it's a learning experience. By the time you figure out what the hell you're doing, You've just finished building your big mistake. You could rebuild it. Use nails. But yeah, what is it? Actually, I could fly out to New Glasgow from London for like $350. I have to times that by 2, so everything is more expensive for this guy. I'll be coming down the mountain when it's time. I'm already planning my trip. You know, Mike Demand, if you're out there listening, you're talking about this Barney's River. Barney's River, and that particular river goes right into the ocean. It's a spawning river for Atlantic salmon. Atlantic salmon come in and spawn in the river from the ocean. So you're talking about direct access to the ocean. Well, you could just take Barney's River right to it. Just to add to what his thought process is. I think that there is something to these 5 trips, or those 6 trips in 5 hours. Whatever precise number it is. I have to go check now, going off the top of my head, but I'm always screwing myself up because there's too many numbers to remember in that statement. There's a 5-speed, 6 hours, 6 trips. What number are those again? It's confusing. What are you saying, Mr. Hemi? But the White Knights aren't. What did I miss? When are the Daniel Martel meth pipes go on sale? The ones with this picture on it? The little bubbles? Actually, better question to ask is when is the RCMP going to release their version of the Daniel Martel meth bubble for their harm reduction programs? You'd rather be homeless than live there with Janie, Amanda Graham? She probably, you know what? She would be a good inspiration for like a skit, like, you know, an SNL skit, like a character. She's a character, all right. Holy shit. There's Pat on SNL, but Janie's just this. They want to tell you that she's got a boyfriend. Yeah, come on. Come on. Could you imagine Janie in a even conceptualizing what romance even looks like? Having a nice romantic dinner over a candle, probably a can of, you know, Campbell's vegetable soup with a couple crackers. Maybe grilled cheese. Oh, thank you so much for the grilled cheese. Oh, fantastic. Smothered in sugary ketchup. Gross. Although it tastes good. But not good for you. Why don't you come on in here for some pork and beans, kids? Come on up in here. Eat some of Granny's pork and beans. Granny should be out there shooting deer. You all of a sudden complaining about a bear coming up in the house. You fucking put that bear and skin it down and you eat the damn thing. Guess what? You got meat for over the winter. Why isn't there any of that talk going on? That entrance to that woodshed would be a perfect place to string up a deer and clean it. Butcher it. It's probably what that overhead 2x4 is for. Not hanging swings, but you hang your deer on there and you dress them. I mean, that would be my priority out there is hunting, especially when you got all that land. You've got all that land, swing back in there with the 30-06 and, you know, get yours. Fill up the freezer for the winter. While you're at it, you can fill up the freezer with all of that goddamn fish. And some lobster while you're at it. I like lobster. Never get enough. Probably should move to out east. It's probably not cheap anymore, though. Probably screw you. Hey, there's Belinda Gray. Good to see you. Thank you very much for joining. I think that was her. Maybe I was seeing things. Well, there's Chelsea. I was maybe reading it wrong. Drippy, I was reading it wrong. With all of the bad things that go on, how can we keep our children safe if we don't educate and teach them? Instead, it's hidden from them. There will be more. Let me see what you're talking about there. Let me snoop in a little bit. What are you talking about in my chat? Possibly, Chelsea, there will be more memorials if this one goes unsolved, and they will have Jack and Lily. Yeah, oh, you want to talk about memorials? Here, hold on, let me get my PayPal link. Should be a memorial and burn down the local CBC station. How about that? How about tipping a cop car on its side? How about going down and hiring a local fraternity to go and get drunk, get them a couple kegs, get them all hammered up and just tear the shit out of the cop shop until Jack and Lily are found. Do it in their name as a symbol. Sticking it to the man. You have to do something like that. Where can we find a bunch of unruly drunks? Janie says she hears everything there, Ronnie, but doesn't know what goes on in that trailer. I think tempers flared. Daniel yelled. Jack got hurt. Lily screamed. Janie heard it. Half-truths in their testimonies. I think you're right on the money, Ronnie. There's something along those lines. I mean, it's a common scenario. It's not like we're holding it against you guys. Like, everybody gets into fights. I mean, why was Daniel so adamant on having all of them stay? Was he, what it probably was, is that he recognizes the effects that those substances were having on his relationship, and, especially its effects on his own physiology. He was feeling remorseful over losing control in different areas, and he just blames it on the drugs in that circumstance. He blames it on the person that he is when he's under the influence of these substances. And of course, Malaya, in that, no matter what, if she's high or not, she doesn't know the type of person that he's going to be at any one moment in time. Ever. That's going to be a bit of a problem, I would think. Unless she's really open. What about all of this open relationship nonsense you guys have? Your old open relationship wasn't working out. That's odd. I don't want to talk about milk carton kids, Drippy. There's a lot more darkness to those scenarios than you want to, Nobody was ever found. No, there's no kids ever found off the back of a milk carton. In fact, there's a lot of ties between those milk carton kids and a lot of unfortunate sexual predators out there back in the 70s and 80s in these different groups around the United States, and its ties to politics. These are facts. It wasn't because of the distress it was causing the kids that were looking at it. Quite the opposite. Back then, there was a real panic, and that what they would do in the media is push all of this satanic panic down you and associate everything to Satan in that circumstance, which is propagandizing evil in that sense. But it's just how they interpret things. In what it comes down to is trauma-based mind control. But we won't go too deep into that. But that's what it was occurring back in the day. Oh yeah. Who was that, Kaylee? Fill me in. Who was the kid that was found? The one kid that was found as a result of being on the carton. I don't even want to get into this conversation because your statement completely contradicts the arguments that are out there right now. And I don't even want to take up any argument. I don't even want to have that conversation. But I unfortunately went down that rabbit hole one day. But it's up to you what we all believe, right? I don't know how much of it. I know what the associations to it is enough for me to be turned off. What's up, Julia Hayden? You're just about to leave work now? Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, I'll appreciate you. Watch it whenever you have time, darling. I appreciate that. I'm going to go live a little bit later on tonight, too. Talk about it a little bit more. Just because I'm sick of not talking about it. We'll talk about it however you want to talk about it, for the most part. No, I hope justice comes, Esther. I don't want to sit and vilify them unnecessarily, but it's not like that's a problem. People are questioning them based off of the statements that they make, because it really doesn't make any sense. And then when all's lost, they just turn around and agree with you. Yeah, that none of it makes sense, or this particular this fact doesn't make sense. But remember what Daniel's really saying. It doesn't make sense in contrast with the story that him and Malaya concocted. Doesn't make sense to anything else. How do you know what makes sense and what doesn't at this point in time? You might not be able to make sense of it, Daniel, in the moment. But again, it goes back to not being consistent with a genuine situation or a person genuinely going through trauma. And he's trying to exhibit and demonstrate his trauma on that screen, crying in the middle of a statement he's giving to the reporter as they're filming him, as he sits there and looks back at the reporter to see, to check if his acting is okay in the moment. God. And it's not even a true emotion. It's not even real emotion. So wishy-washy all over the place. You can tap into emotion, you can act, but it always looks so rehearsed. Why aren't you acting like that way when the camera wasn't just running? Anyway. Lori Green, I wonder if in about 2 years the trailer at Janie's home will still be there and occupied. I'd say probably 2 years. Why? What makes you say that? What makes you wonder that, Lori Green? Just because of the condition, the state of the place around there? I'm probably going to say, oh, you want me to go out on a whim? No. I better not. 2 years might get a few more years out of that trailer. You're going to have to do something soon. Just wait, Chair Bear. We'll get some food in a minute. Yeah, you were on your own, Drippy. If you got possessed by evil spirits, maybe that's what they did. They're high and playing with the Ouija board one night. Daniel's fake cry was to cover his use of past tense when he said Jack loved bugs. His past tense use of, that's interesting, Ronnie. You're a lover of statement analysis too, I can see. Interesting. Yeah, you think that he's going to have his next girl all knocked up? Maybe she's pregnant already. Maybe he mailed his sperm across the country to Saskatchewan and she's artificially inseminated herself to have meadow number 2. It's very Mongolian of him. Maybe they'll order a modular house from Temu. Actually, do you know what? I was thinking about it, man. Not from Temu, but I know what you're talking about. Listen, there's so many different companies out there, including I think Elon even owns a company that makes them out of Texas. With these small little modular homes that come as a package. I was thinking about it, buying one and buying just a nice chunk of land and just sticking it on it. Maybe a really small slab of land. And just sticking it on it. It would be a lot more feasible to afford what you would otherwise consider home ownership. But the costs, if you could find the right place, you could, but some of them don't look too bad. Not too bad at all. But I get romanticized. You know, I fall in love with them, with all of the thoughts and the illusion of it. Maybe how would I know if I even liked it? It would be like living in Janie's RV, wouldn't it? What would be different? What would be the difference? The fact that it's not broken down and it doesn't have like Dodge on the front of it. She says that she remodeled it inside. I wonder how do you remodel it? I guess you just rip whatever's inside out. I have a hard time believing anything was in there of significance to the case anyway. What do you think would have been in there for her to be so non-cooperative with the police on that Friday? There's a cupboard in there. Her medicine cupboard? Like, what would be in there that she wouldn't want the cops to see in the first place in a situation like this? Like, what does it matter? Because I don't buy the dog theory. She uses the dog like she uses Jack and Lily. She uses that dog and puts it all on the dog. The dog's fault. Therefore, I had to do this. The dog's in charge of the things that I hear. You think she's involved in all of that, Mr. Hemme? I guess it's a possibility. Maybe that's why she looks like she's 90. And coming out of her skin, she's gone crazy. She's gone nutty. Well, Daniel was going crazy because he ended up for days doing the exact same thing, expecting a different outcome. That's searching aimlessly in that bush for Jack and Lily. You know, everybody, that's why they've got the search team to go and scour the area and do all of that stuff that would otherwise be taking you away from the emergency situation, which should be in control back there at the command center. It had to have been Daniel and Malaya emphasizing how the kids wandered into the bush. There's nobody else there that there's no other clues there suggesting otherwise. And from their perspective, the police perspective, they have to rule out that because the place is, on a wooded lot. It's secluded. It's isolated. It's rural. You have to rule it out. Hence, there's a lot of bush there. Of course, you would think that the kids may have went up into the bush. I can understand that. But it's your bush. And they're not going to go, they can't be everywhere, can they? The fact that they didn't want to really come up with a lot of these ideas and solutions really speak to you, or speak to me anyway. Yeah, Ronnie, that's interesting that you bring it up. You say, Rob, isn't it bizarre that Justin is on the ATV looking chilled AF, and then we hear he was in floods of tears? Yeah, I wonder which came first. Yeah, looking chill AF with your arms behind, relaxing, stretched out on your mom's RV, Justin, is a lot different than being distraught. Janie carries on claiming that Justin was crying because I'm crying. You know how like babies sometimes start a chain reaction of crying or puking? That's what Janie wants us to think, that Justin is just such a little boy, a little childish boy, that he up and starts bawling and crying. Maybe he does have more to this than we think. I mean, it's not necessary to focus solely on Justin when you have Daniel right there. There's no need to go anywhere else when you have somebody who looks so suspect. That douchebag has all of the answers that you need, and it's just a matter of time before you get at least some of the information or figure out a way to get the information that you desire. You be good, Margaret. Thanks for stopping by, darling. Yeah, Drippy. Janie said Justin was crying because she was crying, because we all cry because our moms are in hysterics. Maybe if we're like 2, 3. They're all... Now, who sits around and cries and bawls? You can never quite get a finger on exactly what has happened and how somebody knows that they're gone, therefore you're traumatized and need to be crying in the first place. Like, what's the reason you need to be crying? Shouldn't you be in a state on figuring that you're going to find the kids in a matter of moments? At any moment? They can't be that far. They were just here. And you want to sell yourself out and lead on that it's all hopeless. Like, that's incredibly suspect to me. That tells me that you already know that something happened. Whereas if the kids just wandered out on their own, they should just be right here. They shouldn't be too far away. But you had to call in the RCMP out of instinct, Malaya, without even coming to the realization that the kids are indeed missing. So it's the chicken or the egg argument in this circumstance. But the fact that you're even confused or looking for that in the first place tells you that they're hiding something. It tells you right there, this isn't like a one-off. It isn't a mistake. There's so many of these inconsistencies, and they all have to do with this fabricated narrative. Ghetto Panda, he's a grown-ass man, unless it was something he was directly associated with. Yeah, that would be the suspicion, wouldn't it? Or you knew they were deceased. I mean, there is hope. Yeah, it would seem to be along the lines of fear. Like they're scared that this is going to come back and somehow come back on, and your life has changed forever. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you loved Lily and Jack and they were your blood and pride and joy. It has nothing to do with that. So why the fuck are you even crying in the first place, Janie? Why is she so distraught when she doesn't like the children? Because you think that you could have prevented something? That sounds about right. There's probably a slim truth in amongst that. Like, put that along in line with thinking that whatever happened the night before, that Thursday night, where Malaya was in there talking to Cindy, maybe that's what ignited everything. Maybe that festered this scenario back up of her leaving, their money troubles. Because now, even the day before, we've got this letter saying that we're not going to be able to have any benefits because my partner, Daniel, didn't file his taxes. So there's a reason to talk to Patty and Cindy. She needs more money. Here's what we're looking at. And here's how, bleak things are looking right now. So going back on it and thinking about, as of April 30th, they would have had a notification. It was known that, there was added stresses. They're having their last line of support cut off. Now absolutely no income coming in. Geez, what's to fight about? Yeah, that would be the straw that broke the camel's back, I would think. That would be a straw that could possibly break a camel's back, if you know what I mean. Oh, not that it's funny. It's just, it makes so much sense, but it speaks to the motive. Daniel, of course, is trying to maintain control, and Malaya is not having any of it. She's had enough. There's got to be a better way than this. I need to be away from this controlling beast. I can't take him, I can't take him while he's on these substances. One, he's never around. Janie was crying, but people were consoling her. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't about the kids. It was about Janie. I think Janie probably wishes that she would have went in and calmed Daniel down, because it sounds like she's had experience with doing that, right? Just like she would have interfered and interjected as she was speaking up in that Facebook, these Facebook statements that she made about, she would have gotten in the way and prevented Daniel from doing anything again. I'm putting that again in there, but doing anything that would have prevented Malaya from leaving. But we know that's already been brought up, like he's physically restrained her in the past, which is probably already is only a slice, a glimpse into a much more darker conflict or point of contention. But friends, it's going on 4 hours. I'm going to shut this down. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Stay tuned, because after dinner on this Friday night, we're going to be back and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Maybe we'll come back with part 2 of Belinda, or there'll probably be something else as well. But come back and join us. And thank you very much, Belinda and Chelsea, for joining me in my chat today. It's such an honor. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace.